Hello, conspiracy players. The following is a guest appearance on somebody else's show, but still guaranteed to be some good shit. Stay tuned for more original content from Conspiracy Playtime.
Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Out in the holler where the secrets creep, garbage can dudes digging mighty deep. Secret societies, shadows in the pines. Operation GCD of American rebels design. Double J searching deep in his brain hole, past layers of melted hops and bone resin. From cults to cover-ups, we're talking about all of that. So watch your sixth friend and the truth we trust. The world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Join us on the journey and enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us to get a little GCD. Yeah, the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo coats haunt the moon's pale beam. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Hell, the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze.
Boom! Howdy, folks. Your host, Double J, back here, coming at you live from my studio / RV dining room, located directly inside America. Welcome back, folks of the interwebs. Once again, your host of Operation GCD, JJ Vance here, and perhaps more notably, not the vice president. Anyhow, welcome back, folks, to the interwebs. Thanks again for joining me here tonight to get a little GCD. We'll be your pilot and navigator for tonight's shenanigan-infused journey into the mind of this particular garbage can dude. And I'm not going to lie to you, folks of the interwebs, got a real barn burner here on deck for y'all tonight. An occult and or esoteric review of the 2014 cinematic masterpiece, Inherent Vice, based upon the Thomas Pynchon novel. Both an interesting characters, Pynchon and the man who directed the film, Paul Thomas Anderson. And in regards to tonight's discussion, probably a lot of occult and esotericism around both of those characters. Just looking at, a review of their past and whatnot and their other projects. So without any further ado, folks of the interwebs, I thank you all again for joining me here tonight. To get a little GCD, we'll welcome in our guests. We got Austin and Wade Picard. Welcome back to Operation GCD, sir.
What's up, brother? Thanks for having me, man. You already know how much I appreciate you, dude. Every time we talk, I learn a lot. So I'm eager to hear pick the brain of not only you, but also the other two guests, because I'm certainly excited just to definitely workshop ideas in terms of the various layered applications to so many of the different real, live scandalous events throughout history, especially more recently in modern history. But the era that Inherent Vice covers, I think, is very important. So I'm eager to kind of
Oh, for
discuss
sure.
some of that. Right.
I think you're spot on, sir, and I learned a lot from you as well. In fact, I was catching your Already Dead show last night, and I like where your brain hole's at in regards to the McMartin School, where all the evidence suggests that school was put on top of an existing tunnel operation. The tunnels went first, then the school, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it was like an old money scion family too that was involved with that had intelligence connections in their background as well.
Big time, dude. Big time.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. It's never ending.
Thanks again for joining me here tonight, Austin Way Picard, to get a little GCD. You're the host of the Underclass podcast, Already Dead. You do another one with Sam Tripoli that I've yet to follow up on and catch, but you're a busy man. Did you have any other plugs you'd like to share with the folks of the interwebs?
No, man, that basically covers it all. Honestly, just check out the Underclass podcast, and yeah, if you enjoy anything you hear or anything I've ever done resonates with you, best place to support me is always the Patreon.
Yes, sir. And I got your links in the show notes already for folks to check out. And our other guests here tonight, the Cosmic Peaches, Julie the Cosmic Peach, and not Bill Colby, the host of Conspiracy Playtime. Welcome back to Operation GCD, sir, and welcome back to Operation GCD for your first time, ma'am.
I'm actually known as the Cosmic Pear for some reason.
That's interesting. Y'all are starting your own little cosmic fruit garden.
I am a little pear-shaped.
You are pear-shaped.
Gotcha.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you all for joining us here tonight for this film review. I know we've briefly mentioned in the past, I know Austin had mentioned to me before this is one of his favorite films, and so did not Bill Colby. And I know, Julia, you'd mentioned that you were a big fan of this film as well. And, it's one of my favorite films. In fact, it's one of the last films I've seen in the theaters where I didn't really feel disappointed, right? There's a lot of, since 2014, there's a lot of disappointments from Hollywood, but this was a good story, solid, great directing, great story to base it off of, etc. Because there is variations between the screenplay and the book, but I really personally though I connect to this level or this film on like and the book for that matter on a more of a molecular level. I joke because it's a private investigator who loves to smoke pot and solve mysteries, and that's kind of the story of my life. So
that's hilarious. Man, that is too funny, honestly.
But I do agree with your statement before there, Austin. I made that this period of time covered in the storyline here tonight's film is a very integral time in America's history. It's a turning point, if you will, to our modern day society.
Agreed.
The late 60s, early 70s.
100%. I think that really the entire situation behind the plot, as far as the layered conspiracy involved with the plot itself, all throughout. In terms of the Golden Fang enterprise, it's very interesting how you see this
absolutely, dude.
Yeah, overarching enterprise, the criminal enterprise playing out in more ways than one, which perfectly represents how these insane underground networks that are so well established at such a sophisticated level. I think it was really post World War II, right? The Gladio stay behind networks and the rat lines that were effectively, kind of implemented. And you had, of course, paperclip. But I think that the trauma-based mind control followed in a certain way, but as far as being prioritized, but still not. It's not as if it wasn't already a priority. But I think it was just sort of the sinister nature of what it became. But still, every level within this plot. It essentially is just drug trafficking, arms smuggling at a certain degree. There's the pharmaceutical nature of running this occult, sort of running an institution, right? and then
we got cults, we got mind control, we got the rehab centers. I mean, what you're describing is what you're describing is the Operation Gladio stay behind drug trafficking, Murder Inc. Enterprises. I think you're spot on. It's all covered in here. It all focuses around the Manson story, and it's taking place at the time of the Manson trials. That's the storyline is going on, and they reference the Manson stuff throughout here. And there's so much Manson lore and whatnot embedded throughout this film, because I've been on the Manson trail for about 15 years now. Long before I found out old Charlie and I were both, we were kinfolk from Pikeville, Kentucky, McCoys and Maynards, that is. But what we're describing is what I like to call Colby's queers, not this Colby, Bill Colby, and his stay behind network, and not a commentary on their sexual preferences, but the strange and anomalous nature that these psychological operations and military operations have left in our society with, the confluence of these events with the mafia, military, spooks, drug trafficking. We see it all here in the cult. So it is a very interesting story in that regard.
Yeah, the Aryan Brotherhood. You have the
dude,
biker
I
clubs.
forgot about that. Yep.
Yeah, not only were they running security, but they're helping with really every level of the operation. Targeted assassinations were being conducted. Basically, one of them was a COINTELPRO operative that was essentially bebeing hired by the feds to commit targeted assassinations and political executions. I mean, it's crazy to me. But also, you brought up Charles Manson, how much is layered in throughout this. The same thing with of course, like what I thought of was the role of the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, the biker gang involved at the Altamont Festival, and how they essentially were there providing what was it, Ronald Stark or something was his name, that was basically claimed that he said that he was essentially, he provided pay slips from Langley, that he was smuggling all of this LSD and this orange sunshine acid on behalf of the actual CIA, right? All throughout the 60s is what he was claiming. But anyway, it just completely, to me, that being introduced to the general population as far as like orange sunshine acid, like having these very unique and just unique qualities in terms of the chemical compound itself, and then being distributed by what the authorities were referring to as the hippie mafia, right? Which was it is all layered throughout this plot in a way that I think the average person sort of misses, especially on like first viewing. You know what I mean? They're not
big time.
I've
talked to a lot of folks that are familiar with these narratives and conspiracy culture we're describing. You've seen this film, and they don't pick up a lot. And I'm not diminishing their viewpoints, but it is deeply embedded in this film. And even myself, I've watched it literally 100 plus times. And I continue to pick up on little parts and pieces here and there because my knowledge of these subjects also evolves. So I did a review of this, an occult and/or esoteric review. My first one of film review, I think, with Recluse over at the farm on this film. He's a big fan of it as well. Did that about 2.5 years ago. So I've evolved a lot of my viewpoints on these subject matters even in that time. So, I think it is important to note that even seeing it once, like you're saying, and then watching it over again, with a new lens or perspective, I think it's interesting what you pick up on in this film. It is that layered and deep. But before we go any further here, tonight's festivities and film reviews, do y'all have anything you're working on over there at Conspiracy Playtime or Cosmic Peach? I know y'all are oftentimes just as busy there as Mr. Austin Wade Picard as far as new shows.
Talking content over your introduction, guys. I didn't mean to do that. I swear to God. I apologize.
You're good.
That's the way it goes. Introductions can go all over the place.
Right.
We actually are kind of working on something together right now.
All right.
It's
a little peach and pear combo.
Peach and pear. It's a 3-part series. Do you want to talk about it? Because I talked about it last time.
Yeah, it's just focused on mental illness and the history of different perspectives on it culturally throughout time, and then of course tying in all the MK Ultra stuff,
pharmaceuticals,
and then I think in the 3rd episode we'll talk about the pop culture element. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, all of it. American Horror Story.
I'm excited about that one, but I'm probably going to be taking a couple weeks off here soon, so we decided to do one last little series together. Kick off maternity leave.
Yeah, she says take a couple weeks off. I'm kind of laughing about that.
What? What, you don't think I can?
Oh, I think we're gonna take more off.
Oh, I was gonna say I at least need a couple weeks.
Yeah, over at Conspiracy Playtime, I've got so many episodes backlogged that it's hard to keep up with. But yeah, trying to be consistent with it. Got real political lately with all the technocracy stuff, but hopefully going to swing it back to the funner topics.
Like Inherent Vice.
Yeah, shit like this.
Like murder and cults, like we did on that Twin Rays cult. That was a real barn burner. I appreciate y'all including me on that conversation.
Yeah. Have you released that yet? I'm just curious because somebody did. You did.
I think I
I
did.
did.
Yeah,
I did. I think I did right around the same time Julia did there. Yeah, I mean, a lot of great feedback, rave reviews.
Oh, good. Yeah, that was a fun episode, especially since it's a cult local to us that was operating. I'm sure some people I know were doing DMT with those folks up in the mountains, and yeah.
Well,
dude, for sure.
I had a good time.
I mean, because these things spread. Oh, go ahead, Julia. I apologize. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. I was just gonna say I had a good time doing the Twins review too. So I always like to jump on for movies. I think it's fun. And this one actually was one that Colby was like, "Oh, you have to watch it," and I was like, "It looks super lame. I don't want to watch it." And then at the end of it, I was just kind of like, "What the fuck did I just watch?" Because it's told from like Joaquin's perspective, I guess. And so
kind of right.
End of it, I was like, I don't know what I just saw. Like what? And then he explained it to me, and then I watched it again, and then I was in the middle of watching it right before we jumped on. And there's so many like little hidden things. You can't just watch it one time.
Right.
You have to watch it a couple times. The first time I watched it, it felt disjointed, and it felt like, what is this, a dream he's having?
Exactly.
This,
that's
so,
like I felt the same way, and I've heard that common review, because you get that, you have that in the book. You have a narrator and you have a friend, and then they mash the narrator and the friend together. So sometimes you see her, and sometimes she's real, and sometimes she's not. But it also plays, I think, into that trippy nature of the entire film in that respect.
Yeah. No, this was a really cool one. I'm glad you picked this one. Colby will be able to offer up more than even I can, but it was a cool movie.
I'm excited to do this. If I may just offer a couple quick plugs here for Operation GCD. I got coming up some other barn burners here this week somewhere. I got them, maybe not. Oh, there it is. Got Anatomy of Satanic Panic tomorrow night, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Times, going over that phase 3 portion of the propaganda, unpacking sort of the framework there with the landing report, how Oprah Winfrey gets involved, and so on and so forth, building upon our psyops to mind war pattern of behavior and operations there from old Muppet Mikey Aquino and gang. I like to make him a little bit more gory each week. He's got a little bit more teeth going on, a little bit more blood popping off on his uniform. You know what I mean?
Deserves it for sure.
He's an evil son of a bitch.
He needs more eyebrow.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't want a spoiler alert, sir, but we're going to do the eyebrows. When I run out of more blood, I'm going to start making the eyebrows beefier. So, and then Operation GCD Sundays, I got the Zizians invade Vermont.
Oh my
the
God.
Transpocalypse, Silicon Valley-based, AI-focused, rationalist, vegan, homicidal death cult. They're still out and about. No worries. In fact, literally, the Process Church, their attorney that helped the leader of that cult fake his death before they went on their murder spree, is literally part of the Neo Process and bandmates with Boyd Rice, major figure in the Neo Process, Church of Satan, and ardent Nazi, Satanist Nazi type.
Wow.
Right? Tracy Twyman's old mentor, right? Every time I mention that, folks, seem to think I'm talking trash. I'm just calls them how it sees them, state the facts. But
yeah, what are your thoughts on Tracy Twyman? Because I just had,
you got a lot of thoughts on that.
It's
sir.
too much. It's okay. We'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, well, yeah, happy to share them. I shared a lot of them when I was unpacking some of the ideas around this, the framework of the Satanic Panic propaganda. There was a real Satanic Panic in the media, right? Organized, well financed, in order to deter folks from trusting their own senses. Muppet Mikey Aquino was a Star Wars fan fiction writer, so I often describe it as he's doing like a Jedi mind trick on folks. These are not the Satanists you're looking for,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's 100% what they did, and what it was hilarious because I remember covering it around the time that I did the Finders episode, which really plunged me into the sort of more state-sponsored child sex trafficking networks that are legitimately, credible, and you can go through the documents and legitimately see the evidence that was, presented by United States Customs Agent Ramon J. Martinez, and it becomes undeniable, and it also becomes very evident why they sort of derailed his career path, and because he remained at least grounded within fundamental basic principles and ethics in terms of abusing children, right, and refusing to remain silent, but then also realizing that maybe his own well-being was at stake, so potentially he should just like remain silent in terms of media appearances. But either way, it's fascinating to see how they used the satanic panic, which to me is just another manufactured, misconception. Right?
Oh, for sure. No, you're spot on, sir. You are spot on. And if I may add a response to your statement and provide your response to that Tracy Twyman comment as well, sir. Also, real quick, Fridays, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Times here with my weekly roundtable on conspiracy culture and high weirdness with Tim, host of a Sixth Century podcast. So that'll be a real barn burner as well. But no, you're spot on there, Austin. So QAnon and Pizzagate were spun off as the next version of this satanic panic, and literally orchestrated by Paul Valet, which is Aquino's boss, who wrote the Psyops of Mind, where General Valet is on Fox News pushing a lot of these across the media, and his associate, old General Flynn there. And in regards to, so that's intriguing. And of course, you see Tracy Twyman on the front end of that. She's on the tip of the spear with pushing that stuff. She even seems to have started her own little QAnon operation called Ananon or something like that. I did a show on a couple weeks ago on my Thursdays. I included it, but this is kind of my broad perspective on her. So she parts ways officially, allegedly, with Boyd Rice, and the devout Satanist Nazi fella. The guy who invented industrial rock, another one of his proteges, along with Genesis P-Orridge, and almost exclusively processed church movement. Another one, between him and P-Orridge, and then their underling or their protege, Trent Reznor and Marilyn Manson, there would record their first albums in the Tate Polanski Death House in a studio named La Pig Studio. So it's a little too on the nose for it, right? But definitely. She parts ways officially with Boyd Rice in December of 2004. So in January of 2002, Tracy Twyman publishes an article about sexual satanic ritual abuse in Hustler magazine, where she's literally naming Larry Flint in that piece as being participant. And I'm not saying it's not true, but what I'm saying is the idea you're publishing that in Larry Flint's publication is a little silly. So that's 2002. She breaks no mentions of the current. This is all old shit. No mentions of the current shit, despite her being really good friends with a major player in the Neo Process and Church of Satan, Boyd Rice, her co-author and mentor. So they part ways in 2004. Well, in 2008, she publishes a longer version of that article from the Hustler magazine in a book in 2008 about mind control. Still no mention of Boyd Rice or any of these other new Satanists or process folks. And she hasn't really changed her mind on anything. And then after that, she's booking neo-process folks like Al Jorgensen on the Clyde Lewis's show, right? And Clyde Lewis, again, this is something he told me. He didn't say neo-process. He just said she booked Al Jorgensen. So, well, that's a major neo-process figure. And he well, again, I can go full process. I won't do that. But so what I'm saying there is, then she starts writing books about Baphomet. No mention of Doug, Lucian Greaves. In 2012, he starts doing his national tour with the Satanic Temple. He runs the process.org website. He attacks satanic ritual abuse victims through the false memory syndrome, psychiatrist, right? It's all the same network, of scumbags, in my opinion. And I'm not speaking of that. I'm just saying folks like Lucian Greaves and whatnot there. But the propagandists play, in the controlled opposition, they seem to have a purpose for somebody like Tracy, who's writing books about Baphomet and not mentioning Doug, the Satanic Temple, Baphomet, and Lucian Greaves, and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, how? And I asked her that question. These are things I brought up to her. I'm being, candid here. I brought up to her when our discussions and our communications, mine and her. So, I'm like, because she was attacking the Templar and saying all this Baphomet stuff. I'm like, well, what about these guys? And then I went more into that. They're running process.org. He's a false memory guy from Harvard, psychiatrist. I mean, and like you're not writing about their Baphomet stuff,
Right.
And you're telling me all this Templar stuff was just literally reciting the Vatican's playbook. Again, I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole, but that is kind of my thoughts on those matters when we look at a lot of these things in conspiracy culture, Manson included. He's a major figure as far as venerated amongst the Nazi Satanist crowd, like Boyd Rice, who did the Manson Chronicles with Nicholas Schreck. So, these are things that there's a subculture today that still venerates a lot of these principles that we see here within that movement. And going back to this film, the Manson, you can't separate Manson in the process. Folks try to, like Tom O'Neill, but they're not being honest. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, they're absolutely not. To me, it seems as if they were using the same alias, right? Isn't that what Charles Manson claimed himself, which is so ridiculous that you had like individual process members who were at the authoritative level, as far as the leadership level, had allegedly traveled from Boston and met with what's his name, the dude that had the falling out with Tom O'Neill, right? Later on, what's his name? Damn it! Just as far as the individual prosecutor, I believe. But hold on, let me pull that.
Oh, Bugliosi's?
Yeah, Bugliosi, dude. I didn't. I was gonna say Bela Lugosi.
That's what we call it.
Right.
We always sing Bela Lugosi's dead whenever we
there you go.
cover Bugliosi.
That is so funny. Oh, by the way,
I think we see the impact of the spook operations though in the cover up of these narratives still today with Tom O'Neill. Ed Sanders pegged him as a spook, over a decade ago when he's working on this 20-year volume of the Manson story, right? Like in Sanders' files, like he wanted nothing to do with Tom O'Neill. You know what I mean? He's a wise man, that Sanders.
Well, Tom O'Neill went on Joe Rogan's show to plug that book. Rogan hadn't even finished fucking reading it yet. And you could tell, like, okay, as soon as somebody's on that podcast, my haunches go up. And then you see like Dana Dudah's stuff that she's been uncovering about Tom O'Neill. Mm-hmm. It's just like, fuck, I liked that book a lot.
I know.
About chaos.
Yeah, because it did give us new shit. No doubt about that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But it's breadcrumbs away from like the process shit that you're talking about.
But isn't there something in chaos about a guy with like a pube vest? Or am I thinking?
Yeah, no, that's strangely enough, his name is Bill Vance with a pube vest. Yeah.
Cousin of yours?
I checked it out, not his birth name, but it is strange why he took the surname Vance. I'm very confused with that still to this day of who he knew in which to take that name. I'm very curious, but I've yet to find out that answer. But no, it's not his given name. But he did. There's a lot of characters. Loved him. He made an entire vest. His motorcycle vest was made out of pubes.
Oh my god!
And he never went to prison.
Chaos.
Yeah,
did you watch
he never went to prison.
No, I didn't watch it. Do you remember Thrash?
Oh yeah.
He told me about the pube vest. Okay. He said it was in chaos, and I was like, really?
I don't remember that.
I first read about it in Adam Go Rightly's The Shadow Over Santa Susanna, I believe.
Okay. Very interesting.
Which is a good book. It's not, again, much like Tom O'Neill, I don't throw the baby out with the bathtub. Tom O'Neill does present a lot of good evidence about the Operation Chaos. And I think that's important to understand these components of Charlie was playing so many different sides. I think he was an agent for a lot of different people. And we see that exemplified in this film, in fact, with Owen Wilson's character. But before we do that, let's describe the film tonight. So we got Joaquin Phoenix, in Inherent Vice, is a private investigator in circa 1970 there, right? Or was it 71? They tell you at the beginning of the film, it's 70, right? Gordita Beach, right? Which is kind of a fake Santa Monica, I think, right? I mean, you're an LA local there, Austin.
I think it's supposed to be it's supposed to be Manhattan Beach, because I believe that was where the author was living when he wrote the book, and so he kind of modeled it after Manhattan Beach. Yeah, which, by the way, Manhattan Beach, the McMartin preschool. Anyone? Does it ring a bell? No. Right? Like that is legitimately where that major scandal takes place. So it's not at all surprising to me that would have been the location. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point, and that's one of the things I found intriguing about this. Let me just bring y'all's attention to Mister Not an Actual Vance,
He
William
looks
Van
like
Sickle, aka Bill Vance.
seeing his face, he actually looks like a guy who would wear a pube vest.
Yeah,
Right,
he looks
right.
like
In the lineup,
see it
we were
now.
like, "Hey, who in
long
this
lost
lineup
cousin.
probably owns a pube vest? Like, he's probably your
This-
number one suspect."
This makes so much more sense.
So so many things about Charlie are misunderstood. For a period of time there, he was running a quote unquote modeling agency on the Sunset Strip. And old Bill
Are you
Van
serious?
Bill Van
Do you know what it was
Bill
called?
Vance. What's that, sir?
Do you know the name of it? I'm just curious.
I believe it was Star Talent Agency.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, he was
He
running it
was
as soon as he got out of Terminal Island there when he linked up with I'm digging deep in my brain hole for some Manson lore. Kaufman,
Okay.
the music producer that got him linked up with the Beach Boys. That was his cellmate at Terminal Island.
Mm.
And, he got him linked up with running some ladies there. And Bill Van Sickle was the one recruiting him from strip clubs, him and his pube vest.
Interesting.
So, some of the ladies in the Manson group got linked up in there because of he was the recruiter right there. He doesn't get described much. He's never done any prison time for the Manson crimes.
Right.
Major figure.
I know it was Charlie legitimately said as far as what was it? The Robert Moore was the alias that Robert de Grimston allegedly went by, right? So that was another firm process connection that always blew my mind whenever I covered the Ultimate Evil and Ed Sanders' book as well, just in terms of the various connections that they laid out for Manson himself. And I think it was also what was it, Phil Jahan or something like that. I believe he's the author of a book that essentially laid out the descriptive nature of Manson, essentially claiming to have associated with Robert de Grimston, and claiming that what he told to this is the craziest part, because this was during the Tate LaBianca trial, that he tells Bugliosi that whenever Bugliosi asks him if he knew Robert Moore, Charlie responds, "You're looking at him. Moore and I are one and the same."
Yep.
And that always just,
I am him, he is me, right?
Yeah, dude. I mean, it reminded me of oh man, it was Aleister Crowley and Hitler, right? Like that strange connection there. There was a quote that almost rang just as far as the similarities. It's kind of extraordinary, but still not at all surprising that you had that sort of, obviously the Theosophical Society and the strange nature of the Nazi occult and what they were practicing. But yeah. I don't know, man. It definitely, considering the direct connection to Manson specifically claiming that he and Robert de Grimston were living under the same alias, it just was stunning to me. And then it was the Father John and Brother Matthew, and I wondered if it was like, there's Father John is mentioned multiple times, right? As far as certain, even going and visiting with Manson before they actually issued the death issue of the Process magazine, which was directly,
Sure.
yeah, where they put in the Manson essay or whatever the hell it was, which is just extraordinary to me. But yeah, that it was those were the two representatives of the Process that went to meet with Bugliosi, which I just thought's fascinating, obviously, but anyway.
No, I
Title,
mean, they run
yeah.
a PR game pretty good, don't they? I mean, they're always trying to cover their steps, right? I mean, that's kind of what they do excel in that.
Right. And allegedly it was after he was asking
Good.
questions, the prosecutor, about the Process, that he was then visited. As much as I think he was controlled, as far as I think he was somewhat compromised and very much on the take as far as Bugliosi's role within the trial itself. I just think the nature of them actually, taking the effort to go and actually meet with Bugliosi and then ask him various questions and confirm with him that Robert de Grimston never, like, sort of at the very least, they never preached violence of any kind, right?
Right,
And
right,
yeah,
right.
it's just
Humanity's the
hilarious.
devil, but we're not violent, right?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And then
No,
they
I mean, if you
transcribed that essay.
look at all these aspects, so again, you start looking at all the theology or philosophies of Manson. It's all processing. Again, there's just no way to separate the two. On above this, the examples you're providing right there, which are excellent examples, and we see the machinations of this entire this processing machine. And when you're saying Bugliosi they went and met with him, you're right. They could have just met with him at the next cult meeting, if you ask me, because Bugliosi's got some weird sex cult stuff going on in his life. And he's not the first one in the LA prosecutor's office. We have Ira Reiner, who was Charles Manson's personal friend and representative for, I believe it was Linda, or the one of the Manson girls,
Kasabian.
Kasabian, thank you, Kasabian.
Yeah.
I believe it was Kasabian's attorney there in the Manson trial for a while, which is again the period we're talking about here. And again, they reference throughout the film the Manson family and the cults, and we see the machinations of that cult again throughout the film. We see the outlaw biker gangs. We see the Satanist Nazis. You know, we see the dentists. Are you familiar with old Charlie's buddy Victor Wilde?
No, honestly, I'm not.
Oh, are Colby, Julia,
No.
are you all familiar with Victor Wilde?
He was a dentist
with a pube vest.
He was not only a dentist, sir. He was also the head. He was a Satanist Nazi, the head of I believe it was Satan's Slaves outlaw biker gang. There, they worked. Charlie, it was you know, this is the machinations of the drug trade there. So they're working with these outlaw biker gangs for largely logistics and security, which is still going on today. In fact, I was going across an example in the Idaho 4 case of that same situation. Outlaw biker gangs literally admitting to investigators in that case and documents released that they were doing security to drug shipments to the murder house, being, you know, for drop-offs, which again is the same thing we're talking about here as far as the outlaw biker gangs go. But Victor Wilde, yeah, really good friends with Charlie, dentist, and the leader of one of those outlaw biker gangs there. And we see those folks in the film.
Can I just say something real quick? I know this is kind of like maybe off, and I know JJ doesn't watch Dexter, but doesn't this remind you of the season with the Barrel Girls?
Oh, like
there was a network of dudes kidnapping and raping and torturing these girls. One of them was a dentist.
Oh, I remember that.
One of them was like a motivational speaker.
The main guy was like the self-help guy.
But one of them was a dentist. Dan the dentist. Right. But I just find it interesting. There's always like some group of people, a dentist is involved, like a public speaker is involved.
Some good points you're making. You're pointing out their all-star team. Sounds like you got a mind control guy, you're a dentist guy. So I'm not precisely certain what these dentists do. There's a lot of weird dentists around Manson and in the family, but
there's a lot of Scientology too with dentists.
Well, there you go.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm telling you, there was a concerted effort to apparently utilize these fake dentistry cutouts for intelligence purposes while they were actually experimenting on these molar implants they would utilize for brain implants effectively is what it really was. And it was behavioral modification and understanding.
Well, I assume that's the role they're playing, right? It's some sort of electronic warfare, right? Dude, mind control warfare, right?
Martin Short is so fucking funny in this role, dude. I'll be honest.
He kills it, dude. He kills it.
This sequence when it's just so perfect, dude. It's so perfect. Like it's got Coke energy all day, and then beyond
when they get in the car,
it's the best.
You feel like you're on Coke when they're in the car.
What did he say? Don't just I forget when he puts, hey, what are you putting underneath the seat, man? And it's like he's straight up stashing.
Pay no attention to that package. No, so as we're describing here, Joaquin Phoenix's character, the pot smoking PI, he gets basically embroiled in this, not by his own intent. Folks are, you know, there's a puppet, there's someone pulling the strings here. There's a puppet master, if you will, and that's, in my opinion, Josh Brolin that we see throughout the film. It's kind of pulling the strings on this and pushing Joaquin Phoenix's character into doing his Brolin's deeds for him because he's fed up with the corruption within LAPD. But it's funny because Brolin plays a robbery homicide detective, who I presume is amalgamation of a few guys, but most notably Philip Van Adder.
Is that an actual
Philip Van Adder?
That's a direct reference. You think he was inspired by his character was inspired by that individual? Is what you're saying?
Well, they both have a Dutch name, right? Philip Van Adder, and you got Bigfoot Bjornsson.
Bjornsson,
Norwegian name, right?
Yeah. You know, it's so interesting how they do. Like, I thought what Julia was describing earlier, as far as the sort of psychological state that the nature of the film, and kind of the pace and every single aspect of it, it feels like you're suffering from. It's so funny because they continually reference Heavy Doper's memory, and then he's consistently sitting there, and he's like not hallucinating. He's writing on his notepad, right, when he's sitting there having conversations, and he's like,
Right.
and these various connections are being made, and he's trying to ground himself back into reality. Like, is this real? And now you're questioning that very fact as the audience member, which is another just a brilliant facet to the experience. You know, I think it's honestly, it's an extraordinary film for that reason alone, because it does sort of evoke these emotions that are directly, I think, what they were hoping to achieve. And man, like, upon
And I think you're right. I think you're right as far as the trippy nature of it, right? I think Penchon did a good job of that in the book, but Anderson even excelled on that by kind of, again, mashing the narrator and the Joaquin Phoenix's friend in the same person, where it becomes very trippy of what is and is not the current reality that man's experiencing objectively or inside his head, right? But yeah,
Right.
real quick, Straight Satans. Thank you much. That is Victor Wilde. He was the straight, not Satan slaves, Straight Satans. I get my Nazi Satanist
Satans.
biker gangs mixed up apparently, but
Interesting.
no, it's a great point. Anti-dentite. I'm a huge anti-dentite.
Anti-dentite. Dude, what's that from?
Medieval torture. That's Seinfeld. That's a Seinfeld.
Okay, all right.
So,
I have a theory about why Joaquin Phoenix character is so disjointed, because it took me probably about 10 viewings before I got to this theory, but I think that he is actually an MK Ultra victim. He's being like led down so many paths by so many people. He doesn't question any of it. He knows he hallucinates. I think the narrator slash friend is supposed to be his hallucination. Like, it's that Joanna Newsom character. No one else ever acknowledges her. It's usually just those two alone in a scene, but even when they're with other people, he's the only one who sees her. So I think that, like, Bigfoot.
I like it. I like that idea, sir, because he's also, in my opinion, part of an Operation Chaos, like we're talking about with Manson being part of the CIA's Operation Chaos, at least in one component, and how Owen Wilson kind of represents a portion of that tale in the film and his character. But Joaquin Phoenix, if you think about it, he's a PI working under the name Doc at a free medical clinic, right? And he's got a handler who's played by Benicio del Toro, who's this weird maritime lawyer, right?
He's got like
a lawyer
3 different handlers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
well, that's what I'm saying. So Manson was playing all these sides. We know that much. We know he was doing that. Right. We see the same thing with Owen Wilson in the film. But ultimately speaking, playing all these sides, they're really only playing for one side, and that's ultimately this cult within this national security framework. And that's what we see. You know, spoiler alert, towards the end of the film, when Joaquin Phoenix gets Owen Wilson's character out of this cult network situation, of this COINTELPRO stuff. We see COINTELPRO, and literally described in the film, but we see the machinations of Operation Chaos played out through Joaquin Phoenix's character. And again, we see other elements of this with the Black Guerrilla Gang, who's teaming up with the outlaw Nazi bikers, and we see that represented through folks like Donald DeFreeze and the Manson family.
Exactly,
the SLA.
The symbiont.
The girl that's like that's narrating, that's supposed to be the friend. Watching it back again today, maybe this is out of the book, I don't know, but like even the language she uses, it's so new agey, like dreamlike weirdness.
Very hypnotic, right?
Yeah, the Neptune is gonna conjunct with the this and the dopers and the that. And I was thinking to myself, it really does feel like it's almost meant to confuse you at points.
Yeah,
like when she's narrating.
She's his programming.
Yeah, that's what made me think of it.
Here's a funny thing too. So that's Joanna Newsom, the harp player that's playing Liege. She's married to Andy Samberg from Saturday Night Live.
No way.
Yeah, and Paul Thomas
Interesting.
Anderson, the director of this movie, the
Yeah.
chick that works in the front office,
Maya Rudolph.
that's
Yeah.
it. That's Paul Thomas Anderson's wife.
Yeah,
They
I
have this
knew that.
weird like
Yeah.
Scientology Saturday Night Live thing.
That's
going on.
interesting, man.
Ooh.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, sir, because there's only so many films you can do relative to Scientology with Scientologists before you make the top of my list of secret Scientologists. And Paul Thomas Anderson's up there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, have you seen The Master? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
it's-
I think that's what got
it's the
Seymour
tell-all.
Hoffman murdered, dude.
Of
Was The
course.
Master.
Of course.
I'm gonna have to rewatch it again after all,
It's
because
a rough watch.
I
It
loved
really-
it so much though when I first watched it. I watched it many times when it first came out, but it yeah, in hindsight now, knowing what I do about because again I wasn't as well versed in, and definitely hadn't even been introduced to the process when I first watched that film. So it's like thinking about it now, especially in terms of clearly the Scientology nature of Philip Seymour Hoffman, clearly, I mean, representing LRH, which is just
And not in a good light. And they do not
Not
like that within Scientology.
right. But again, it just, to me, it was interesting because like Joaquin Phoenix in that role, he was like this. He was definitely fractured in every way as a person. It was like what the animalistic nature of mankind is what it was supposed to represent, or something, I believe, is what they hoped his character would represent to the audience, which makes sense if you're considering like who is most vulnerable to this kind of esoteric these kind of esoteric teachings, in terms of like many of the occult new age organizations that were, I believe, kind of made out of whole cloth by the intelligence agencies for
sure.
this reason alone, to implement this new age philosophy. And I think in order for us to embrace this inverted moral landscape and these upside down inverted moral principles that clearly are the antithesis to what you should attempt to just practice in your daily life, as far as your most core values that you uphold, right, as an individual person, that make you a worthwhile and a net positive to society at large, which is another hilarious kind of like misconception in terms of the poison pill that is collectivism, which I consistently, I kind of preach on that just
Well,
personally.
it's the same thing. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. I mean, what you're saying, sir, I think is the same thing. If I may interject, I think it's the same thing, because what it boils down to is all these commie bastards, right? All, the process are devout Marxists. I don't see any difference between the two ideologies. Folks can battle semantics all they want. It all ends in nihilism, and it's all very anti-American, anti-liberty garbage.
Exactly.
So when you're saying this is spook operations to introduce the new age, that's really what it is. Introduce fucking commie shit. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I thought the Joaquin Phoenix character in The Master, he was supposed to be like a Parsons type guy, because it's like the prequel to the Showdown, because he's the guy mixing all the chemicals.
You are right about that. Yeah.
And then they start this feud, and the movie ends before we get to like the big showdown.
I forgot he was just making these toxic
You bring
alcohol.
up an interesting point. You bring up an interesting point for sure. We might have to do a future one on that, sir. I do enjoy that.
I'd
Paul
love
Thomas
to.
Anderson
That
film.
I've only seen that movie twice. It's painful for me to watch because of the way
it's not good.
You
It's one of my least favorite Paul Thomas Anderson
I love the movie, but it's just, yeah, you're watching it through characters' eyes, just much like with the one we're covering today.
You're supposed to suffer.
It's slightly above Punch Drunk Love for me. Slightly above Punch Drunk Love.
Oh, I love Punch Drunk Love, though, man. I do love that one.
That's Adam Sandler.
I mean, I like all Paul Thomas Anderson films. That's
Right.
it's not high up my list there.
I get it.
I
Well,
was gonna.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say too, in this, at the very beginning of the movie, like after he meets with his ex-girlfriend, the next scene after that is when we see the narrator chick, and I swear it's like trying to set it up that he has like split personality or he's dissociated in some way.
I think that's part of the reason why you all mentioned before, y'all were spot on in your analysis of how folks initially took this film, is because of that reason, I think. But I also think it's done intentionally to paint this kind of mystical nature of the entire film.
Well, yeah, because you remember she says you need to do something about your hair. If you change your hair, you change your life. And then the next scene, he's got those little perms perm
You're
rub.
right. Yeah.
And it's like he's totally
Well-
disassociated. Now he's got a perm. Now he's got, he's sitting there watching TV. And
I'm glad
it's
you
like the
mentioned this because
programming.
I got a clip dialed up here to introduce us to this narrator and the exact mystical nature you're describing, because it does immediately hit you with, is this lady real? Or because you see her later and she is real, or you presume she is, right? Not is real,
Right.
but is an actual person.
Did you see they have marshmallows on that pizza, by the way, in the scene with the narrator when they're just eating in the restaurant? I thought it was my wife pointed
Oh,
it
I thought
out
that was
to me.
mozzarella. No.
Dude, I hope it was, because I was
Right.
like, is that fucking marshmallows, dude? Like, I was disturbed at
my
a core
God.
level.
Ooh.
Anyway, go ahead.
Well, let's watch this brief introduction here to the film, and we see the mystical nature. It kicks us off. So that is a good. I mean, it's a really, to me, it's a gripping way to start the film. And again, it paints the mystical nature. Once you start seeing this lady's not so much in his head, but possibly in his head, possibly not.
Yeah.
We also get introduced to Shasta Faye Hepworth, which is an interesting character name, right? But she's a blue blood kind of character, right? Of like an Abigail Folger type of situation. And she's the one who gets Doc embroiled into all this stuff, Queen Phoenix is, along with Bigfoot Bjornson. They're clearly, you'll realize towards the end of the film, and probably your 10th or 12th watching, that these two have been working together the entire time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I think it's nuts whenever, I mean, as soon as you see him go to the real estate development location, where the only thing that is on the property is this trailer that's clearly a prostitution operation, where who's running security when Doc shows up, all these motorcycles leave, right? And it's obviously the Aryan Brotherhood, or it's supposed to at least, I think, represent, this
probably Hell's Angels,
neo-Nazi.
right? I mean, Aryan Brotherhood, Hell's Angels, because this dude's got a big swastika right
exactly
here.
Neo-Nazi biker gang of some kind. And even if you remember when Doc goes to the pad, right, the spook pad in Topanga Canyon, which is just felt like this is Laurel Canyon, right? I mean, come on, this is what they're trying to represent at the very least.
Oh, well, for sure, because they're going to, if I may, they're going to see a band. They're going to infiltrate. So we don't get too far ahead here. Owen Wilson's character comes into play here, and that's where they're going to visit him. But let's just put a pin on that real quick, because I agree with you, sir. That is Laurel Canyon. I think Owen Wilson plays a very much a Laurel Canyon musician. He's a former surf sax player from the Topanga Canyon band that
he probably like heads the wrecking crew.
Well, there you go, sir. There you go. And when then he fakes his death, and suddenly he's working for the LAPD. He's working for the Cult. Right. He's working for the FBI, for COINTELPRO. He's working for the Golden
damn Nixon rally, dude. It's so funny.
And he's got different identities with each group, though, right? Because the Nixon rally, when he gets pulled out on TV, making a big spectacle in a very COINTELPRO, agent provocateur fashion. The district attorney from Los Angeles that Queen Phoenix is banging, Reese Witherspoon's character, the assistant DA, she knows him as Chucky, which is a different identity than his real identity or the one he's going by in his other spook operation. So he's got at least 3 identities.
I think she's one of his handlers too.
I do too.
Has to be.
The attorney,
Reese.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sure.
That makes all the sense. I mean, and then she sort of like lures him back, he'll walk me back to work type of thing, and then he's sitting there with COINTEL agents.
He gets him snagged on purpose.
100%, man. Yeah, it is that to me. And then, by the way, meeting with at his dental practice or wherever Doc's hanging out, right? And he's just huffing that laughing gas, right? And that's so hilarious.
It's a free medical clinic, right? It's just like the free medical clinic that Abigail Folger's mother was financing there in the Haight-Ashbury with the whole spook operation there with MK Ultra stuff.
Exactly. But was it it was the Black Gorilla, isn't that the name of the group that Omar from The Wire, right? Wasn't he the actor that played that role? Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. He was and also what Chalky White and Boardwalk Empire, which is another one I really love, actually, is that is an amazing series, truly, I believe. But anyway,
his death is suspicious too in real life.
Definitely.
Who's that?
This
He died of
actor-
a heroin overdose, right? Isn't that what
No
happened?
shit, I didn't
Yeah,
know
it was
that.
Oh, you know
Yeah.
who else died of a heroin overdose?
Janis Joplin.
Janis Joplin.
Oh,
How about Philip
That's
Seymour
a
Hoffman?
joke.
yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
allegedly.
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 You know, when I again, this happened right after, not right after the master, but soon enough. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with that death, but when you see 20 or 30 little baggies of heroin and some dude relapsed and they're all just spread across his body, like that's somebody who doesn't understand heroin who staged that scene. Like that's not somebody who understands.
They Lane Staley'd their way out, which
Yeah, dude.
I just realized there's a weird Scientology connection between not only Philip Seymour Hoffman playing L. Ron Hubbard in The Master, but he was in Magnolia with
Right?
Tom Cruise, right?
Exactly.
Holy shit, I
dude.
just
That
realized
background,
that he
too.
played that character with Tom Cruise.
And he's telling the story along with Paul Thomas Anderson in the 4 on the 4 situation, right?
Interesting.
Oh, wow. What
That
movie
is
is that?
interesting.
What's the one with Mark Wahlberg playing John Holmes?
oh, that's Boogie Nights. That's
No.
that was
Oh,
like
yeah,
that
yeah,
was,
that's
that was his second movie, and it's the one that
Right,
was
but that's what I'm
his
saying. Like
breakthrough.
that's the whole scene around the 4 on the. They don't say
Yeah.
the 4 on the 4 murders, but they're describing
No,
the
it
whole
was
scene around
because
it.
he's supposed to be.
Four on the Floor.
I mean, they call him Dirk Diggler, but he's supposed to be John Holmes.
Are you
Right.
serious?
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
know
absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
Look,
absolutely,
I love
yeah.
Boogie Nights
Those are
too.
2 Laurel Canyon
Oh,
movies.
he loves that era.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. When we start
Magnolia
looking,
is
so before we go any
also-
further in the film, let's just take a quick moment here before we. I wanted to discuss Paul Thomas Anderson and Thomas Pynchon's past before we go any further with that, but let's take a quick on that note. Let's take a quick intermission right here.
So how are all of those little wave ripples? How are those so perfectly matching what's in the video?
Because all dispersal
And the
patterns,
dots.
all dispersal patterns look the same. This is like saying that my butthole is your butthole because they're similar, right? It's not. We don't have the same butthole because of that,
You're using butthole out of context. You're talking about buttholes making everyone feel weird.
and that's the point.
All right, so that one's for Julia. She loves the word butthole, so
I
Loose
love
butthole. Julia there.
those.
I yelled at her from the kitchen. That's for you.
Yep, there you go. So Thomas Pynchon, he's the one who writes all this stuff. So in order to get all of these Manson things involved, I mean, again, we're describing some Scientology connections with Paul Thomas Anderson, which I think again is very apt to where his knowledge and activities involvement come from and why he's doing these things, perhaps making these films. But we see because the process is the dark wing of Scientology. They can claim they're an offshoot, but they there's a lot of argument to be made that that's not quite the situation.
I've heard it described as the strong arm of Scientology by certain people as well. And I don't know. Do you think that there's any accuracy to that statement? It seems like it
I
could
do. Look
yeah.
at MrProcess.org himself, Sir Lucian Greaves, the Satanic Temple, right? Doug. He attacks victims of satanic ritual abuse through this false memory syndrome stuff. He's directly linked with the psychiatrist of the false memory syndrome. His
The
Process.org
Network.
website is dedicated to attacking satanic ritual abuse victims through satanic panic and false memory stuff. So we kind of see that. He's got an e-meter at his headquarters. So we see him do, he says he wants to perfect the use of it. So, I mean, again, if you take their actions, not their words, you can start seeing what's actually going on there, right?
Right. Yeah. Man, that's interesting for sure. But I definitely think that there's so much value in just the pop culture introduction of a concept, utilizing the sort of this paradigm, you know what I mean? And that is why I think Inherent Vice is so special, because it kind of appeals to me directly, but people who I think kind of just like they in order to at the very least interpret the current power paradigm at play, it's like you have to understand the playbook they utilize, right? And as far as these domestic operations and how they're facilitated, the distribution networks involved, the geographical hubs for the strong intelligence footprint that is clearly the hidden hand directing things, which is another aspect of how this perfectly represents the nature that is this very much criminal enterprise, but it's it's really an international. That's what it feels like to me. And they all conduct themselves in a very similar way and facilitate cover-ups at every level as well. But there's no difference to me when you see Michael Aquino, which you mentioned earlier, and clearly plays into so much of this. And you see him traveling to on his diplomatic missions, right, to these Nazi castles and performing satanic rituals, right, and they're connected to the Pink Ballets in Belgium and the Marc Dutroux network, and he's not only affiliated with Franklin but the Finders and the Confessions of a DC Madam, right, and Craig Spence and his operation as well. And so for me, this provides us this. It's just another window into. By the way, it's another reason why I'm consistently pointing out the fact that they never stop the objectives of the criminal enterprise at like the drug trafficking level. Obviously that's not going to be where it ends. They will continue this sinister pursuit into the darkest clandestine corners of intelligence that will effectively involve, the abduction of children on the street using, police protection and local officials helping cover up the criminal cases so that the overall network isn't exposed. And this right here.
Well, what you're describing, sir, if I may, Austin, what you're describing is the reason, is kind of the from what I see, the motivations of Josh Brolin's character in the film, the LAPD homicide detective, of what is motivating him to actually put all of these wheels into motion here in the film, pushing, pulling the strings there on Joaquin Phoenix's character, working with his ex-girlfriend Shasta Faye Hepworth, who's dating that real estate developer, this big real estate developer he's kind of got a couple characters, I think, amalgamation therein, but they do kind of tie him into this Howard Hughes character when they got the Mormon Mafia FBI guys around him and whatnot, right?
By the way, the COINTELPRO agents who meet with Doc, they offer a copy of the Book of Mormon. Right, I was like, hold on, what are you doing?
So what you're saying is these ongoing enterprises, we see these in the film, and this is what motivates Brolin, the LAPD homicide detective, enough because this network had murdered his partner and nothing came of it, and he just seen enough of it. He's clearly lost his mind. We know he lost his mind throughout the film. They kind of just, again, back to this nature of what is reality and what's this trippy nature. We see Brolin losing his shit throughout the entire film.
Yeah. Well, he's lost it already. Like,
exactly right. He's fucking out there, right?
Can I just say, dude, I love Josh Brolin, but I think this is by
my
far
favorite
his
best
role.
I said that to my wife earlier. Like last night, we were trying to watch through at least the first half, and I said, I paused it. I said, this is my favorite role for Joaquin Phoenix, Josh Brolin, Benicio del Toro, and honestly, even Martin Short. It's probably my favorite character for him as well, just because it's so perfect what he represents in that role.
The scene where he's eating the banana in the car. It's one of the best scenes in the movie.
He's throating the popsicle.
Joaquin's just watching him like.
Yeah, he's so disturbed.
Right? Oh, dude. And the scene where he's getting them pancakes. And they're clearly messing with each other, They're
yeah, dude.
Wait, he's trying to mess with Joaquin Phoenix, and Joaquin Phoenix is messing back with him, and they both now at that point realize they're both fucking with each other.
You know that I read a Medium article
because he tries to tell him that Martin Short's character was found with a broken neck and two fangs, fang. Speaking of Michael Aquino and some psychological operations, make it look like vampires killed someone. This drug trafficking machine with the dentists, with Hollywood, with the mafia, with major Hollywood figures, which we can get into who that guy is. Burks Dodger, that is. Who I got a lot of ideas of. That's Marlon Brando being represented there.
Right,
but we see that. Exactly. There you go, sir. And Marlon Brando got an island in French Polynesia, the same place where they're taking this golden fang, right? The
down to the Virgin Islands, right? Yeah, man.
Down to the Polynesian Islands, right?
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting, and also, Benicio mentioned the white Anglo owners and Howard Hughes when he bought the Desert Inn, right? Basically being the representative for the intelligence agencies on the Strip instead of essentially the feds needed someone who wasn't Italian, right? As he said, I think is the way that he put it on the Strip. And then to to put it in that perspective, though, with the Howard Hughes reference was so incredible for me, just because knowing the level of involvement that Howard Hughes really kind of fulfilled as far as the private sector, plausible deniability cut out for the intelligence apparatus to clearly, pursue these domestic clandestine operations, and it was Nixon as VP who was tasked with. He gave Howard Hughes a call. He said, "Hey man, we need you to set up these domestic black sites all throughout the U.S. to train up these Cuban exiles, right? In order to, and so we can greenlight these various false flag operations all throughout the
dude. Howard
US.
Hughes is in deep. That's what I'm saying. When they give the nod to him as far as the real estate goes with this Mickey Wolfenstein character who disappears. And that's why we saw Shasta Faye Hepworth coming into the Joaquin Phoenix's apartment, his ex-girlfriend, because that was her boyfriend and he's disappeared and she wants his help. But it's really, we later learn there's a little bit more behind that. But yeah, Mickey Wolfenstein. So yeah, they give the Howard Hughes nod. There is a LA based developer who Jewish fella who his son went to Vegas before, like folks like Sheldon Adelson and Steve Wynn and folks like that of these Jewish heritage there. But it is interesting to see that this real estate developer is so entrenched in the deep state, and they give the nod to Hughes, which kind of makes me think that there's an amalgamation of Hughes into that character, because Hughes is about as deep state as it gets. Are y'all familiar with the term the Glomar response?
Yes. Yeah.
And Freedom of Information Act requests, you get the response, "We cannot confirm nor deny this."
Exactly. Yeah. We can.
They call it the Glomar from the operation USS Glomar operation, 100%. Which was a Howard Hughes ship with a giant. They had a huge vessel, and they were trying to dig something up from the bottom. So they had a big.
They claim it was a warhead, right? Like a massive nuclear warhead that they were attempting to retrieve, that had fallen into the bottom of the ocean because of a submarine had sunk or something to that effect. And
that's what they claim. That's their claim, but they can't confirm nor deny it. And it's really that mission was a Howard Hughes ship, and Bill Colby, not Bill Colby here, but Bill Colby was in charge of that operation there. So, that's how deep state Hughes is. But we do see that the story revolves around that. But this ongoing enterprise of all this activity, this hood rat shit activity, is what motivates Josh Brolin's character and Shasta Faye Hepworth. And they're looking for this missing real estate developer, and what that's what they tell Joaquin Phoenix, right? But what they're really doing is trying to attack this cult from the inside, kind of deal, right?
I read a theory on that I have to mention before I forget. I thought it was a little bit ridiculous, too far-fetched, but again, it was published in like Medium or something, and it was essentially saying that that basically Bigfoot Bjornsson had potentially. He was even a sort of construct in the mind of Doc for the audience, and that effectively his character had essentially kind of like spun out of control in various ways because of the sort of extraordinary effect of what had happened to him throughout the covert operations that killed his partner. And I thought it was hilarious, but it was the fact that Joaquin Phoenix could have even been a sort of created construct within the mind of a layered character in the plot itself, which again, it's like you're questioning
kind of like a Fight Club scenario, right?
Yeah, definitely. I thought it was a little ridiculous, but I found it interesting because, again, we're always in that mode of questioning what is real. If you remember when he's meeting with the heroin addict that obviously is the wife of Coy, or at least the mother of his child, was passing the heroin through her breast milk, and when he sees the picture of the child, he like screams out, but that obviously didn't happen, right? Because she didn't have any real obvious
right.
Yeah, she didn't even react. And so that to me was another example of like, that didn't happen. That was an internal reaction, and we got to witness it. And because it wouldn't be natural whatsoever, there would have been a reaction, obviously. So it's another layer to questioning what is real and what is not. And
they keep hitting us with that too, right? Because there's that one scene where the narrator we saw when she's playing her real, because in the book, there are two different characters, the narrator and that woman. So, but to add to the trippy nature of the book, Paul Thomas Anderson has mashed them together here. So you do see a scene where she's in the car. You think, oh, she's actually in the car, but she's not. You find out she's not. So you keep getting those elements like they're describing.
I'm telling
That
you,
is
that's
big.
a hint.
That's how I took it
That's
too,
true.
especially like that weird trippy the way that she talks throughout the entire movie. But does it ever explain in the book or like why his nickname is Doc?
Because he's a doctor.
He's not a
No,
doctor.
I don't think it does. But that's what I mean by he's working at a free medical clinic as a
Yeah,
PI.
I think, dude, I definitely
I have
think
a
that
theory.
he is like, yeah, this person, whoever came up with the theory that Austin was just talking about, took it a step further. But
Right.
there's a reason he's so disjointed, and there's a reason he is so willing to go along with all of his handlers. He's got 3 that I can think of, and he never like stops to think, why am I in the middle of everything going on?
Right. You remember when he goes to the Wolfman residence and the whole entire LAPD is just at a pool party?
Yeah.
and
it's interesting what they say there too, right? Because he says they're partying because they know the feds are coming in to shut everything down.
Dude. That's exactly, which to me is a sign that one, all of the local officials know exactly the playbook that's being, sort of implemented and presided over at the moment. And two, I feel like there's a reason why, Jade, obviously the prostitute who's at what's the name of
Pussy Eater Special.
right exactly.
No, perfect timing, sir. I got a clip here of Jade.
Nice. That scene right there I think is incredible. The fog itself sets the tone, right?
Yeah,
it's just perfect.
No, absolutely. So he meets her. He goes to that real estate development looking for Mickey Wolfman and gang and whatnot. And he finds the biker gang, gets knocked out, and suddenly he's the suspect by old. That's what I'm saying. So we start seeing the machinations of Bigfoot Bjornson right there because he, obviously, when you see Jacqueline Phoenix going into the whorehouse there at the new real estate development that Bigfoot Bjornson does the commercials for right on TV, right? Which is kind of another scene where you're like, is this real? Is it not real? Right?
Yeah, he starts talking to him through the TV.
Talking to him, yeah.
Right.
Hey, Doc.
But
yeah,
then you see Bjornson later talking about how his TV roles and commercials have dried up. So there is, again, that trippy nature of the matter.
Yep.
So he gets knocked out. He's going there to look for. Actually, he's going there to look for Puck Beaverton, is he not? Because on two reasons. The reason because Puck Beaverton is the associate of that black gorilla family guy who comes to find him at the free clinic, Tariq Khalil. And where he's like, he's writing down because he's already been told about Puck Beaverton. He's like not hallucinating because multiple people are talking to him about Puck Beaverton, right? The guy with the tattoo of the swastika right there.
Mm-hmm. Beware of the golden fang, man.
So she links up with him again, and they become friends, right? The hooker here, Jade, and she's kind of his like mystical guide, if you will, right? You have the narrator, right? But she's always popping up, right? She's kind of like the person kind of guiding him through his mystic. And I like what you're saying of the fog. It's it adds to the mystical layer of things, but. We also meet Owen Wilson here too, and his character, and the Golden Fang, because the Golden Fang also exists in this kind of liminal space of: is it a ship? Is it a team of dentists? Is it a international drug trafficking operation, or is it all of those?
Child trafficking, maybe.
Yeah,
well,
I wouldn't be.
You're gonna do one without the other, sir. They're gonna do both, I think, right?
Right. Exactly. I mean, especially the area that they were sailing from.
Yeah, I think so, and I mean. It was Jade herself that claimed that the Golden Fang was a drug trafficking operation, right? That she essentially told Doc like right away when she apologizes to him. What wasn't the
right? Because dude, he can't wrap his brain hole around what the Golden Fang is, right? Because again, that's why I love that. I'll play it in a minute with that clip scene or the scene in the pancake.
Do you remember
at the end where they're messing with each other? Bjorn, and again, it speaks to them maybe being the same person.
Well,
in that one scene where they're both messing with each other.
The scene where they do the handoff and they swap Owen Wilson out. There's 2 fucking obviously under 18-year-old girls that like facilitate the whole thing. So that's what put that in my mind about child trafficking.
I don't doubt it, sir. That's a good.
I know. Honestly, I'm gonna have to because I didn't finish it again. Like I wanted to get to the end of it, but I didn't quite finish it all the way, and I don't remember that part where the girls were. Oh shit!
Also, the girl that was in the dentist office.
In my back.
I feel like I potentially cut out too, but I'm not quite certain.
So when we get back from this clip, I want to know, before we get in further in the plot, what your all's thoughts are on how Thomas Pynchon even knew these narratives and storylines. Granted, he didn't write the book until 2009, but he was living in Los Angeles of this era, so I have to assume that he came across some of these folks or situations.
You have to think.
But this is going to tell us about Jade, the Golden Fang, and Owen Wilson's character.
I can't stay out here long. This is Golden Fang territory, and a girl don't necessarily want to get into difficulties with those folks.
Meet the schooner Golden Fang.
The Golden Fang.
Golden Fang? She's not just a boat, Doc. She's much more than that.
A boat? An Indo-Chinese heroin cartel? A vertical package. They grow it, bring it in, step on it, run stateside networks of local street dealers, and take a separate percentage off of each operation.
What I need to know is who are these friends of Glenn's who are...
So that's a pretty good description of it, right? As far as as the octopus nature of it, right? Because then they go on to describe, this is what I like to use as an example of the whole hog effect of this whole kind of cult network, is they're going to profit monetarily speaking off of each step in the process, literally the process, because they get them hooked on the heroin, which sucks the calcium out of their teeth, and they get them new teeth. They send them to drug rehab and rinse, wash, and repeat, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that is legitimately what was happening at Haight-Ashbury. I mean, it couldn't be more accurate in terms of how that operation was ran, and these strange MK Ultra operatives, scientists that are just hanging out, taking notes, watching what happens, kind of like just presiding over the experiment in a certain way. But yeah, I think that that scene where they go to this dentist office, I thought was incredible. But I also thought the scene with Owen Wilson, him trying to kind of like explain his motivation and justify why he was like recruited essentially by this vigilant citizen, I think is what it was called, the Vigilant California. That was the name of it, right? The group that he allegedly was working for during this COINTELPRO layered operation that he was living. As far as like he claimed, what did he say? He said we were dragging each other down, and just explaining his sort of heroin addiction lifestyle and how much it obviously wasn't working, and the reason that he sort of was justifying leaving and taking this job, and which to me, usually I would imagine in the real world, it would take like a criminal conviction of some kind, or like just an offense at the very least, right? You get arrested, you're facing charges that are extraordinary.
Some sort of compromising position, but he describes it almost more voluntarily. He's doing it for the cause, right?
That's what he said.
Hepworth is the one who signs him up for this program. So back to these kind of blue blood families, right?
Exactly. It's so crazy because when he says that, I thought it was interesting because he definitely claims that like it's moral, right? He attempts to justify it in ethical terms. I found very interesting because he claims that the group Vigilant California, they have money, right? They're not like the Bible thumping freaks on the beach who are screaming at you or something, is the way he puts it, right? And then he explains how basically he thought it was something that good to do for his country, right? But then he says, as stupid as that sounds, like he legitimately, like as dumb as that sounds or something like that. I think he actually addressed it in the next sentence. But then he goes as far as to actually question. I thought this was very interesting because he says that what he really found out was that they just want to use them and essentially keep the membership in line. Right.
He says, you're right. He says, keep the herd in check. Right.
Yes, dude.
So it is the social engineering through chaotic events, which we see him perpetrating as a faked his death, Laurel Canyon saxophone player from a surf sax band or from a surf band, which, again, has striking similarities to the Manson family, because that's Bobby Beausoleil came from the Arthur Lee and Love band, which could be classified in that category genre of music in Laurel Canyon. He was a guitar player, but what's that?
Is that the dude that wound up dead off the boat, like he drowned and it was very suspect?
No, I think you might be referring to Dennis Wilson, sir, from the Beach Boys.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Bobby Beausoleil today sits in prison for life sentence for the murder of Gary Hinman.
Yeah. My bad.
Another drug trafficking related situation that doesn't often get described to that. And again, whether or not Beausoleil, who was Kenneth Anger's boyfriend, knew Aquino, LaVey, they all know each other, all these damn Satanist Nazi fuckers.
Right.
But, the story is with him, they find a knife that was used in Hinman's attack in his car. He's sleeping on the side of the road. So much like all these things, again, as we see in the film, is this reality or is it not reality? Because for many folks, Owen Wilson played 3 different characters. Some of those characters that he played in this real life, world that he's LARPing in, died. So, when some of these folks die around these scenarios or some of these characters are playing, I often wonder, are we seeing some of the veil behind the curtain with this plot line? And if so, like, where did Thomas Pynchon get these ideas? What are your thoughts there, not Bill Colby?
I actually don't know, but if about him really in particular, but you're saying he grew up in that area. And he's
from Long Island. He himself, the Pynchons are an early the Pynchons are an early Massachusetts Bay family. So his paternal line goes back to the to the Mayflower, if you will.
So how old was he when he ended up in LA?
I think he was in his 40s come 1970. Okay. He's an old man today.
So this was one of the last books he wrote. I think it came out in 2009, if I'm not mistaken. Sir. And so he definitely it's like Stanley Kubrick. You didn't dream that shit up. You were
say that.
In the main vein somehow.
But
exactly. That you're reading my brain hole, sir. He got this information from somewhere, whether or not he experienced it or had some insight somehow, right?
But this is the guy who wrote the book, right?
Yeah.
Not the director.
Yeah.
The guy who wrote the book. Okay, so think about it. He lived in the area.
And he came from Long Island too.
And he's got a thing for Laurel Canyon, right? Obviously. You know what I was thinking is like the only other reference of someone who has split personality, dissociative identity disorder, whatever, that was also nicknamed Doc, was from The Shining.
Oh, right.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
And so he's obviously got a thing for like this Jack Nicholson, Laurel Canyon fucking scene, right?
Definitely.
So his main
check that one out. This is how in the know this what I'm saying he was at the time. Oh, I'm sorry, Julie. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying the coincidence to me to have 2 separate characters that are Laurel Canyon-esque playing dissociative identity roles, Doc and Doc. That's, to me, it's a dead giveaway.
I don't disagree. And look how in the know he might have been there in the scene, that is, at least in June of '66, Pynchon wrote a firsthand report on the aftermath and legacy of the Watts riots in Los Angeles titled A Journey into the Mind of Watts. So, who else is in Watts at that same time? The Warlocks, a.k.a. the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
With Courtney Love's dad managing it.
Courtney Love's dad and the founder of Tavistock's son is their music publishing company president and best friend of Jerry Garcia, one Eric Trist, his father Alan Trist. The man who wrote the paper on these social engineering tactics we're describing is depicted in the film, to keep the herd in check, as you were pointing out there, Austin. These were developed through something called social turbulence, a theory, a paper written by that founder of the Tavistock, Alan Trist, who invaded America along with the process. He went to UCLA and seems to have set the framework before Jolly and West arrived a few months later.
Wow. That's so crazy, man. Especially consider the anti-cult network and what was it? Rabbi Maurice Davis and Louis Jolly and West and these various operatives that are very clearly they're tasked by, it seems like, Sidney Gottlieb, the black sorcerer of MK Ultra himself. They call
Poisoner
him, right?
in chief. Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like they were sort of tasked with infiltrating the vast majority of these sort of criminal cases that were surrounding allegations of cult networks, sort of utilizing these very similar strategic, just sort of just agenda items that they kind of like. It very much matches exactly what we've been describing. But also you consider Rabbi Maurice Davis, who legitimately gave Jim Jones his first of all, he gave him a synagogue, but it was his first sort of property where he implemented the People's Temple, as far as like the ideology itself and the organization that he created and then took to Guyana later on after he moved to California. But still, it's fascinating to me that the individual who financed Jim Jones' very first, church for the People's Temple was previously a synagogue ran by Rabbi Maurice Davis, who was a part of the anti-cult network and a key MK Ultra operative, along with Louis Jolyon West at the time. And he was the individual palling around in Kentucky with Jim Jones leading up to his prominent rise, which just, that to me, there's no way, after you obviously follow that story to it's just sort of like extraordinarily detailed level in terms of the evidence provided and kind of how he was groomed into this level of becoming an asset, for the intelligence apparatus. So I don't know. I'm very much interested in how much Doc was created. Was he legitimately just a fabricated character within the context of the mind of an individual character in the actual plot line itself that was a kind of a spinoff from sort of just this? So I think it could be almost a schizophrenic break that occurred due to the level of involvement in the enterprise itself, which you never know, because you consider like the moral implications of being involved in something like that, and then finding out what happened. Your partner gets murdered, and then all of a sudden you realize that you've been facilitating a criminal enterprise that's sadistically abusing children at a level you couldn't even comprehend.
Dude, it's already affected him, right? Because his wife's already.
know.
She's like, we got a psychiatrist bill that'll choke an elephant, right?
That Doc is an imaginary character for Bigfoot.
I'm just saying
that's what I'm saying. There is a theory, like Austin was describing, like it's a Fight Club type theory where both Tyler Durden and Ed Norton's character are the same person. So schizophrenic break. Yeah, dude, it's kind of the same kind of deal, right?
The end where he walks in and he like eats all the weed off the tray.
Yeah.
That was fucking weird.
Exactly. And you remember the scene too when after the pool party, right, at Mickey Wolfman's place,
where he runs out and
he runs to the exactly.
Right.
And then, by the way, the symbolic nature of kicking him while he's down, literally.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
thought interesting. You never know, right? Like that does make sense.
It does.
Well, you also see them on that scene at the end. They stand up at the same time. They're talking, and right each other's face. They say the same words, right?
Yeah, that was okay. I'm gonna have to watch this again.
I know, dude. I'm gonna have to finish it
in mind
for the 7. Well, yeah, because you could pick up if you watch that, you can just pick out clues.
Which, by the way,
I mean, it's an interesting thought for sure, right?
Time, thanks to Colby too.
Yeah, she'd never seen Fight Club till like a month ago.
Yeah, I'm getting all kinds of good stuff.
God. I heard you guys talking about covering like the MK Ultra aspect of things as well, like in a recent project or something you're working on now. And I wondered if you guys had watched, just in terms of like, again, the sort of pop culture reference in introducing a conceptual notion that is far more valuable than I think the general public is aware of, and that being like, and again, I've mentioned this a couple times in like the past 2 weeks, because I made probably the past week and a half, because I made the mistake of watching this film called Blink Twice, right? And I'm not sure if you guys have seen it yet.
We watched that recently. Yeah.
Okay.
I've never heard of that film.
Oh, you watch it, JJ?
It's on Amazon.
So crazy.
I don't remember where we watched.
It's so crazy, man. I think it's on Amazon. Yeah, I believe that it's free on Amazon actually. But
somebody had recommended it to us, right?
Yeah, it was Lola, JJ.
Oh, Lola, the one we did the episode with, JJ. I was actually going to say to Austin, because it sounds like, just based on several things you've mentioned, McMartin and Franklin, and I don't even have to explain this to you. You probably already know. But in Program to Kill, they talk about, because you mentioned Jim Jones, how Henry Lee Lucas was somehow connected with Jim Jones, and this serial killer aspect comes into play with the cult aspect.
The Hand of Death cult.
Right. Yeah. They keep calling Joaquin a cult leader in the movie, and it's like they keep bringing up like this cult mentality thing, and it always goes hand in hand, like CIA programmed cult leaders, serial killers. They all know each other.
Exactly.
They're all, and
they definitely all know each other.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like outlined in Program to Kill so beautifully. I can't remember what the connection is, but if you look hard enough, like you wouldn't think somebody like Henry Lee Lucas would be palling around with Jim Jones doing anything, but it's like somehow they're connected, somehow they're friends.
Sure.
Yep.
Somehow,
Michael Aquino is coming up in witness statements of satanic ritual abuse in Ukiah, California, in 1988.
Brother.
Somehow.
Is that with the Presidio preschool?
He comes up. There's a lot of satanic ritual abuse scandals in California that come up Aquino there in the 80s, and one of which is in the Army CID themselves, the Criminal Investigation Division. They investigated that one as well because Ukiah, basically everyone who worked in Ukiah and ran businesses and ran the post office, they were all members of the People's Temple.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they were running the welfare programs in the county. Like I didn't realize how much they had infiltrated the state level of like the institutional level of the, you know, it was insane how much he was just getting like signed over to him. Like it was interesting how they were targeting various individuals who were just fresh out of prison, right? Or they were you know, they were experiencing some sort of extraordinary traumatic just sort of event in their lives and became willing to sign over basically their entire it's
perfect
crazy
timing.
Yeah, and then you have individuals who were allegedly there in Ukiah when they were having these, and Jim would have these loyalty tests, especially with members of the sort of inner circle in the People's Temple, and he would he even claimed at one point before they ever even left California that he had a meeting with sort of the leadership of the People's Temple, and he was discussing with them the potential move. And this was before all the allegations of abuse and things of that nature came up, because the claims were being made that he was faking many of these sort of theatrical performances for the People's Temple members, claiming that he's like healing individuals from cancer, throat cancer and shit. And he's actually forcing them to like shove chicken bones down their throats. And like, it's super crazy. And then they cough out blood and he claims he healed them, and everyone believes it because due to the extraordinary level of the presentation itself and the theatrical performance. But it's like incredible.
Also just wanted to accept it. You know, you want to be in the same mindset as your fellow cult members.
Exactly.
You want to, you got to, you know, you don't want to get too far away from the herd,
but
right?
That's part of the programming, right? That's part of the MK. It's
100%.
like the trauma-induced miraculous cures and like God healed them and stuff like that. I mean, that's all part of the MK shit.
For
exactly.
Sure. And speaking of trauma here, this is that clip not Bill Colby there was talking about regarding this dichotomy of these two characters, possibly even being one, and the trauma. But I also want to know.
Oh my God!
One quick note on how all these folks know each other, because you all are making some excellent points there. Sidney Gottlieb, if y'all didn't know, bought a goat farm just down the street from the Finders Farm there in Virginia. I'm not sure if y'all are aware of that.
That's interesting.
Can't make this shit up. Can't make this shit up.
It's not. I wish it was a pig farm for some reason.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about the goats, though, them children were caught in photographs from the Finders sacrificing goats.
No,
buddy,
got them from Sidney Gottlieb's farm.
The execution of Henrietta and Igor. Yeah. And by the way, it was Charles E. Marsh who had direct connections back to the formation of the Federal Reserve. He was a spook himself who provided all the funds necessary for Marion David Petty to purchase the hundreds of acres of farmland in Culpeper County, Virginia, that he would then call the farm, which was just happened to be eerily near the CIA's training compound that they called the farm. Right,
it just happens to be near where Gottlieb sets up his goat farm, but not far from Bill Colby, where he dies there in Southern Maryland.
They all retire there. It's so strange. Culpeper County is one of the main areas where all these spooks seem to, at least for a while.
JJ, is that where Ted Behole's family is from?
So Ted Behole's mother's from Burlington, Vermont. You know, his biological father, Bill Colby, not Colby here. That's not Bill Colby. You know, he's actually from Minnesota initially, but his father was a U.S. Army colonel, so they traveled a lot. That's what brought them to Burlington. He became the ROTC commander at the University of Vermont in 1941. Yeah, because Colby went his sophomore, junior, and senior there at South Burlington High or Burlington High School there.
And that's where
I looked up the yearbooks.
His mom pregnant.
Yeah, so he comes back from the war, enlists in Columbia University for law school. His mom and dad are living in Burlington at the same time while he's at law school, and suddenly during that era, Ted Bundy's mother gets knocked out by an unknown man there in Burlington, Vermont, the same town where I presume Bill Colby's visiting his folks on a frequent basis. Because it's a straight shot from New York City to Burlington up the highway. It's about 6 hours. I've done it a lot, but it's not a bad drive. But nonetheless, I don't have documented evidence he's in town. I know his folks are living there still, right? I know no one knows who Ted Bundy's father is, so I like to say it's Bill and Ted's murderous adventure. Because what would be a better storyline than having the head of the Phoenix program come home, these satanic serial killers, one of the most prosperous ones being the biological son of that man, Bill Colby, who brought it home.
And Ted Beehole kind of looks like him.
Dude, they look so much alike, Julia. Now that I might have confirmation bias, but like the more I look at those two, I'm like, how is that not more apparent to me before?
I had never, until you brought it up the other day, I had never even thought of it. They do with that like skinny bridge of the nose, like fucking.
Yeah. And they both Ted went to law school, and this would provide a context for Ted's strange meteoric rise to the top of the Republican Party. Not just any top, Nelson Rockefeller team RNC, top of that one.
Interesting.
So wild.
I wouldn't at all be surprised if there was just based on the connection of like the Nazi breeding experiments and what Kerry Thornley, who founded Discordianism and was allegedly one of the, according to Jim Garrison, was one of the Oswald impersonators that was conducting covert operations along with Oswald for a time, and that's why he was stationed with him at Atsugi Air Force Base. And before the fake defector
Jim Garrison
program.
was right about that one, sir. Because then you see Patrick Hemming; he falls in the same category. He's one of Mitch Warbell's underlings, training the anti-Castro Cubans. He knew Oswald at that same time.
Right, which, by the way, the Atlanta child murders and the Iran-Contra connection there, and Wayne Williams claiming that he was basically, set up, as a plausible patsy in terms of a suspect of opportunity, that he was set up by the CIA specifically for that purpose. And what did they utilize? This all came from an 8100 file, which was basically buried underground. And it alleges that this is all based on a Georgia Bureau of Investigation, a GBI, wiretap recordings of KKK members who were involved in fucking Iran-Contra, who were apparently conducting covert drug smuggling operations through Hartsfield Air Force Base or something, or no. The international airport, I mean.
Hartsfield Airport, that's the name of the international airport, yep.
Yeah, in Atlanta. Right. And so basically that was just one of the methods that they were utilizing to, traffic drugs and then smuggle weapons, of course.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir. This is Bill Colby's CIA AI bot. Bill Colby ball washer bot. He shows up every time. I don't know who killed Bill Colby, but he's trying to argue that murdering women and children is sufficient reason to stop communism. And this guy defends everything Bill Colby did. It's quite comical. Our channel, though, will say his dedication keeps me motivated. And on that note, we talk about all this trauma. We see that in the film with both of these main characters here, right? The main character and kind of the, maybe his double, right?
Joaquin's reaction is priceless.
So that was right after he got arrested for that incident there at the whorehouse with the dead outlaw biker gang they were trying to put on him. Even though we see him walking into the facility, we see all the LAPD guys in the background coming up to murder that outlaw biker guy, right? So we get kind of a sneak peek into it, right?
Definitely. But the only reason that I brought up Carrie Ann Thornley was because he claimed that he was essentially a member. This is so crazy that he says that he became convinced that he and Oswald were products of MK Ultra, and that they were products of MK Ultra in order to create a Manchurian Candidate, and that one of his handlers, apparently two mysterious middle-aged men named Gary Kirstein and Slim Brooks, And
Yep.
Thornley later came to believe that Kirstein had in reality been senior CIA officer and future Watergate burglar E. Howard Hunt, who allegedly ran point in Dallas for the hit squads that were in town to assassinate JFK in the killing of the King ritual. And right after the Dallas assassination, it's so funny because he goes back home and he instantly uses his children as a sort of alibi and goes to a plastic surgeon and has his ears tucked, right, or pinned back. I mean, his ears pinned back because he had like very unique ears, and he was worried he would be identified by the witnesses for being the point man on sort of the grassy knoll during the alleged assassination, where they had like triangulated fire that they had specifically set up multiple hit squads, obviously to assassinate JFK. One even being, there were at least three, because one was allegedly stationed at the airport because he wasn't going to leave Dallas alive, and that they had already ran the Chicago and Miami operations and even had their plausible patsies in place. One of them seemed to very much match the same character profile of one Lee Harvey Oswald, let alone the fact that Lee Harvey Oswald is at a party, right, like leading up to the assassination in Dallas, like within a few days prior to the assassination. I believe it was Clint Murchison Jr. Set up the party, but his father, Clint Murchison Sr., I believe he owned like the Cleveland Browns or some I forget which NFL team that he actually owned. Friends with Lyndon Johnson, and he was hosting a party himself with Lyndon Johnson that night, and multiple other figures that played prominently into the assassination, as far as being architects, right? But his son was hosting a party the very same night with Lee Harvey Oswald, the officer J.D. Tippit, and Jack fucking Ruby are all at the same party,
hanging out rehearsal dinner,
right? Hanging out with Heidi Reichen, the White House call girl, which is so crazy. Who she comes up later on in Watergate, because she sets up the Columbia Plaza prostitution operation in the Watergate complex, which housed the DNC at the time, and there was a private communications
more Mormon Mafia stuff too.
Yeah, and it all lines up with. Well,
that's who E. Howard Hunt was talking. You know, the guy you were describing is Slim Shady there with Mr. Kerry Thornley, which he himself is quite shady. I agree with a lot of Garrison's conclusions. I think Garrison was onto a lot more stuff than he was probably letting on there, because please,
you got to let me show you this picture just for the sake of bringing up the Nazi breeding experiments. Lee Harvey Oswald potentially being a part of this, because no one can really no one can seem to acknowledge who his father really is, and this is very interesting in terms of the claims that were made by Kerry Thornley, because this is fascinating to me. Again, it's as far as becoming he even names, right, the member of the SS that he believes to have been the father, and I believe it was Admiral Karl Donitz. That's what they claim, and this is fascinating stuff, because he began to suspect that his parents were Nazi spies that involved him in this Manchurian Candidate program. And again, he creates Discordianism and occult this sort of ideological doctrine that is then implemented at this New Age level. And
it's essentially an offshoot of the process, though, right? Because when Jim Garrison's doing his grand jury in '68, the process is there. He's already onto the process, because they've hired Tommy Jude Baumler as their attorney, and he's already investigating Jude Baumler for the JFK stuff.
Yeah, right? And he was.
So, do you remember when we did that episode we did, and I told you that Lee Harvey Oswald befriended that pedophile guy that was living in California who murdered all the boys? His name was Patrick Kearney. You remember that?
Ma'am.
Patrick Kearney murdered like 120 young boys and raped them, disemboweled them. And he said that he became friends with Lee Harvey Oswald when they were doing like top secret operations, some type of language school or something like that.
Yep,
you remember
in Monterey?
that?
Yeah.
Monterey Language Institute. Yeah.
I actually read this book. I don't know if you made it to this chapter, but it talks about the multiple Oswald theory. and how there was
That's from the Warren Commission. That no one pays attention to it. That's from
All
the
the
Warren Commission. The
There's
Warren
gotta be
Commission
something to
inadvertently
that.
identified numerous children growing up across town from each other named Lee Harvey Oswald and Harvey Lee Oswald, but no one pays attention to that component of it. They obviously didn't pay attention to their own summary of it, to be fair, but nonetheless, it's an investigation.
It's very interesting, though. If anybody has time to look into the multiple Oswald theory, it's pretty wild.
No, I agree. And speaking of Patrick Kearney and the Monterey Institute, where Oswald was doing his language training as well,
right?
Mae Brussels was there at the same time. She lived in Monterey area there, Carmel by the bay there, and she remembers picking up a hippie, man dressed as a hippie, that she later saw on the naval base there as at the Language Institute. So this is a good example of this late 60s era we're talking about, the infiltration of spooks into this countercultural movement, or it seems the entire creation of the countercultural movement by spooks, and then they all just keep it moving together almost, as a biological system, just keeps functioning. It almost like protects itself. It's in some regard, right?
It's
think of the Society of Cincinnati that you're always bringing up, JJ.
Yes, ma'am.
Like literally, wait, who is on?
I'm gonna have to do an episode on Society.
Well, no, I'm glad you said that. So I'll have to look more into this, Austin. I'm into the idea, but we do know for a fact that Barry Seal and Lee Harvey Oswald
Civil Air Patrol
are in the same. What we're saying as far as same Civil Air Patrol unit as 14 and 15-year-olds. So what we're saying here is a breeding ground. We already have exhibited in that. However, I'll have to look into this lineage. I'm interested in it because Barry Seal is a descendant from Captain William Seal, the North Carolina chapter of the Society of Cincinnati, and Lee Harvey Oswald's the third great grandson of Joseph Oswald, a major in the Georgia chapter of the Society of Cincinnati, the secret society that started America. So I'm into the idea, but it's interesting. We see those kind of those were the folks I would expect to be in these programs, I guess is what I'm saying as well. So we see it being exhibited.
Jackie, actually, as in Society of Cincinnati, because this is my theory. Colby didn't think of it at all. He has no idea about it. But have you ever heard that Jackie actually shot Kennedy?
Oh my God!
The final head blow.
I have heard that. I have heard that.
Colby's theory, but I'll have him tell you.
It's not my theory. I just watched the fucking film, and I watched this Mandela Effect documentary where they show that she fucking reaches under his chin, that spray goes straight up, and then she drops something metallic behind the seat. But since then, I even think that footage is real.
The Zapruders?
Yeah, I don't think.
No, that's what I'm saying, dude. It's not real. I think Ryder Lee over in his JFKX documentary did a great job pointing out the issues with that. I mean, on its face, it's another circumstance where it's interesting who tells these narratives. So again, like Matters with the Manson story, right? We get Adam Go Rightly, who's the chief Discordian now, and again, Discordianism of Kerry Thornley, I would argue, is part of the same British invasion as the Process, which he had machinations with in '68 in New Orleans when they got there, because Thornley, the rest of Thornley's family tree, all British invasion Mormons under the era of Brigham Young, they all came to America when it was not America. They came to Deseret, the Mormon nation of Deseret, from England. So we see the same kind of British invasion aspect to that.
They named their secondhand clothes store the Deseret Industries.
Ooh.
They name their paper the Deseret, the Deseret News as well. So yeah. So Brigham Young, when he took over and took the Mormons out west, the first thing he did was call the MI6's chief spy, their James Bond of the mid-19th century, for a meeting. So in 1852, it's literally, I mean, again, we see the machinations of the British invasion continuing to circle around these same aspects, because it's my opinion, based upon the Process Church's own corporate documents, that the Quorum of the 70 that's outlined in those corporate documents is the Mormons' Quorum of the 70, which is their main organizational structure of the mothership in Salt Lake City, which would provide context of why they're in Kanab, Utah today as well.
Interesting.
And
so we see that all with Thornley. We see the Mormons, we see the Process. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was just going to say they practice. I don't know if you watched Under the Banner of Heaven, but that's when I learned about blood atonement and shit. And that's like, I don't care what you say. That shit is like straight up demonic.
It's like Old Testament.
That's some fundamentalist views. So you have your fundamentalist Mormon sects that don't skew from the original theology, if you will. But And I think some of that stuff, again, falls within some of these elements of these cults we still see today, because a lot of those Aryan Nazi folks in northern Idaho started off as Mormon fundamentalists, so we see a lot of the machinations around these kind of same activities. But Thornley is a great example of another guy with the Language Institute kind of connections with the spooky operations. And we see more and more of these examples of the infiltration of these movements. And we see that with Owen Wilson's character. We see that to a certain extent with Doc Sportello. He's not as, Joaquin Phoenix is not as openly infiltrating these places, but he's obviously infiltrating all these different groups and places.
They're making him think it's his idea.
Right.
Right.
Every step of the way, he's being led by a carrot on a stick.
Carrot on a stick. See, Doc.
There you go.
Oh my God.
There you go.
I'm telling you.
Another one of my favorite scenes is where the Nazi guy finally has him in the office and they dose him with PCP in his J. And then he shoots him. He's like, "Did I hit you?"
Yeah.
I have that clip up here, sir, but I figured, and chronologically speaking, once he gets introduced to this Golden Fang situation, and he starts seeing these disparate elements of this mystery he's being surrounded by, Joaquin Phoenix, he finds himself at the headquarters of the Golden Fang talking to old Dr. Rudy Blatnoid here, right?
Yeah, man.
There you go. Her father is the Dark Prince of Palos Verdes.
Yeah, that's so crazy. That's so close to me.
Very powerful attorney, right? And we see him later in the machinations of representing this entire occult drug trafficking Golden Fang network. But what I thought was interesting there is there was a lawyer there in Los Angeles that helped Charles Manson numerous times when he got out of Terminal Island in '67, when he was cellmates with Philip Kaufman, and when he was running that Star Talent Agency, he got into some skirmishes and troubles with the law. And there was a guy out of Pacific, not Palos Verdes, Pacific Palisades, but a very powerful attorney of a blue blood nature, because we call them Crocker Fenway. I mean, that sounds as old East Coast blood as it gets, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Did you ever come across that Danny Trejo connection to Charles Manson? I thought it was so funny, dude. That as far as when he was,
there's another absolutely. And if I can just give you can introduce us to that one. If I can give you a quick Scientology connect to that. So Trejo is the first cousins with Robert Rodriguez, and him and Quentin Tarantino have way too many Scientology
know they were first
connections.
cousins. I didn't know that, and I love
that's why he got cast in all them films.
That makes sense, but
Desperado, the knife guy, that's the one.
I'll be honest, I was a big fan of the Grindhouse films whenever they came out, right? Like, those were fun.
That's what got Trejo his start, right? The Grindhouse stuff.
And Robert Rodriguez, man, I mean, from Dusk Till Dawn, I mean, I absolutely love that movie, right? Just as far as Cheech, right?
Well, he also casted Quentin Tarantino as himself.
Yeah, who's just sucking off Salma Hayek's toes.
And he's fantasizing about the younger girls. I mean, dude, fucking Quentin Tarantino pulls defense for Polanski.
Oh, yeah. And I mean,
all the time, dude. All the time.
He's a party girl,
too.
Yeah, he's happy to even bring it up when you're not bringing. He's worse than Anthony Weiner, who's going around saying he should never been charged for anything. I'm like, what?
Oh my God, you saw that?
About? Yeah, dude.
That was so funny, dude. But what about Candace? She said Harvey Weinstein is perfectly innocent. He didn't do anything.
Oh yeah, she's stepping in line too.
They all do. I swear.
Yeah,
By the way,
she serves as a nice shit carrot and purpose on things, doesn't she? Old Candace.
Hey,
there.
buddy. Well, tell me right now that you're on the same track as I am, and as far as you guys. Your interpretation of the Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. Oh my God, they're all feuding. In reality, it's just a way to like coexist and push each other up into prominence in a way.
Absolutely. They're going to bring Alex Jones for the last portion
He'll
of the
pick
show.
a side. He'll
bring them all together, right?
Yeah, it is so WWE with these fucking alternative media.
It's all kayfabe, man.
Well, absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Now, so
it's like Elon and
I think
Trump
in regards. Oh well, that's not happening. Peter Thiel's not gonna let that happen, right? So we see one of my favorite scenes in the film. We see is the ongoing conflict between Bigfoot Bjornson there and Joaquin Phoenix's character Doc Sportello. But in regards to Bigfoot Bjornson and this whole Polanski situation, so it was Philip Van Adder, the lead detective on OJ, the rookie cop at the scene of the Tate Polanski house there in '69. He was on scene there. In fact, the first officer on scene at Tate Pulaski, Richard Wally. The first officer on scene at the Nicole Brown Simpson, Ron Goldman scene, Richard Wally. Philip Van Adder was the lead detective there. Philip Van Adder was second on scene with Richard Wally at Tate Pulaski back in 69. But in 77, it was old Philip Van Adder. And full disclosure, he and I aren't kinfolk, but we have common kinfolk because the Van Adders also hail from Logan County, West Virginia. And when you mentioned the Franklin scandal, that also goes back to Logan County, West Virginia, with Henry Vincent. He's from and still resides today in Logan County, West Virginia.
You
a lot of weird stuff goes back there.
Yeah. Do you think he was given an offer he couldn't refuse, and essentially took his own life, or do you think that was the layer, just like kind of explanation for?
Oh, I guess I'm behind the times. Henry Vincent died.
Oh, I'm thinking Craig Spence. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm thinking
yeah, no.
the actual connection, the intelligence connection to Henry Vincent's network. But
I last I heard Noel Vincent was still alive.
No, he's good. He's good. Yeah,
I think they took Spence out personally.
Yeah, that's how.
It was very convenient timing for all of that, right?
I mean, that guy would have talked. I guarantee you, if they would have got him alone in a room,
right? Same as Deborah Jean Palfrey, right? Who the DC madam who she was involved with like Todd Palin, who was essentially during Sarah Palin's bid for the White House. There were these investigations that were being conducted prior to all of that, and during that process, Todd Palin was sort of exposed as being affiliated with this sexual blackmail, human compromise operation with a madam prostitution.
Is that Deborah Jean Palfrey?
Yes, and it directly connects.
That book's still sealed. That book's still sealed, and they threw the federal judge off the bench, I believe, over
exactly.
matter, if I'm not mistaken.
That's why she died of the worst case of suicide you've ever seen, and she claimed prior to that obviously she would never kill herself, and that if anything happened to her, that you question the outcome. And nobody has done this, obviously, except for people like Nick Bryant or individuals like us that are obviously they claim that we're schizophrenic. You know what I mean? Like basically,
you bring up some good points as far as the whole Franklin scandal business. Go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead.
The one who died with the Epstein stuff. Virginia
Giuffre.
Virginia Giuffre, yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I'm telling you right now, and I got some strange like pushback on Fiona Barnett and Eyes Wide Open. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that book or some of the allegations that she had made with Detective James Rothstein that she, at the very least, she had a relationship with. It made me consider, at the very least, what she was claiming to be the case, but it's just like, man, honestly, I could understand a world where she was given the Virginia Giuffre treatment, and essentially they undermined her credibility in a way that was just perfectly convenient for the moment in time, obviously, in terms of the Epstein disclosure, guys, right? And sure. The transparency, the most transparent government and administration in American history, as we're intended to believe.
Well, right, and I think that's what you're pointing out, sir, is what I like to say is, well, we need to understand who's giving us these messages, what their motivations and intents may be, and what, possibly, again, what's the outcome they may desire is amongst a larger group that they may be connected to. For example, would you believe Virginia Giuffre's maternal uncle is likely a member of the Society of the Cincinnati, from a very powerful member of the Virginia chapter? God.
Dude,
her mother's a Cabell, and the Cabells, if you're familiar with the Cabells, that's the deputy director of the CIA that JFK fired along with the Dulles.
Oh my God.
He's a Cabell, and his brother was the mayor of Dallas that day, Earl Cabell, right?
No way.
Earl Cabell and Charles Cabell would be third cousins to Virginia Giuffre's mother, Cabell.
I fucking love you, JJ. I learn so much every time I come on.
So there's 5 Cabell boys.
I learned so much from
There's
JJ.
5 Cabell boys in the Virginia chapter.
It's fucking real when Austin's whipping out the notebook.
Dude, that's crazy, man.
I don't think she ever left the network, right? She was always a victim, even up until her death. I mean, in varying capacities, I think, right?
I believe
she was never
so.
able to leave. I think she was born into it, much like I was saying about Lee Harvey Oswald and Barry Seal. These are the people that, out of the society specifically,
it's like
we
the
find
Laurel
in these
Canyon
matters.
gang. Like you're taking
It
on
is a
your
Laurel
parents'
Canyon gang.
debt. They fucking
That's-
big time for the shit they've done or
Oh,
seen.
yeah.
And they got to.
Well, that's why I like to play
kids.
Your Daddy and What Does He Do? Because then it helps describe these matters, I think, better.
Dude, Virginia, she was at the age of 7. She was already being molested by a friend of the family, apparently, and you know, and to understand that, what was it, her father that arranged for her to get that position at why is it escaping me right now? Yeah, Mar-a-Lago, thank you. Yeah, and then, you know,
Her father now has gone trans.
No. All right, dude.
Yeah,
Ding, ding,
yeah.
ding. Let's check off every box. That's
Guy Roberts on his public Facebook page. He's wearing a wig and a dress, dude. I'm not making this stuff up.
No.
JJ, do you remember when we talked about that with Ryder and I said that her
Yeah.
trans name is Darlene Dirty Puss?
That's right. That's a great nickname. I do remember that.
Yeah, Darlene Dirty
She
Puss.
forgot to dilate it that night.
Oh my god. That is hilarious.
No, but see, the picture
Are
we're
you
painting
still on
here is
YouTube,
very.
JJ?
What's that, sir?
Are you still streaming on YouTube? Have we got kicked off yet?
Oh, I don't. I'm sure we're good. I've said worse. So we're painting this larger, broader picture of all these major. So if we know about the scandal, if it's a parapolitical event we're aware of, not only do I argue all roads go back to the Cincinnati, you know. There's a question there about JFK, our channel. Again, I appreciate your dedication there. JFK was a member of the Society of Cincinnati by virtue of being the U.S. president. He's not a hereditary member. He doesn't get to pass it down. However, his wife's father was a hereditary member of the Maryland chapter. He died in 1957. Thus, JFK Jr. was born into the Society of the Cincinnati in that hereditary role. So you look at the JFK death real quick. You got Lee Harvey Oswald, probably a hereditary member of the Georgia chapter. Whether or not who his biological father is, that is, for example, his grandfather was a colonel in the Confederate Army. So we can see the lineage through these matters. But then you have Jackie Kennedy's father. Jack Bouvier was a Maryland chapter member. Again, he was dead by that time, but puts JFK Jr.'s death in a new light. You got J. Edgar Hoover as a member of the New York chapter of the Society of Cincinnati. It really paints a different picture for a lot of these parapolitical scandals, right? And again,
brother, that's fat. Like, I'm not trying to cut you off and continue on. I just wanted to briefly mention the fact that I think there's no doubt about it, and there's no way that we can kind of chalk it up to some sort of ultimate coincidence happening here in terms of the direct connection to this Nazi element to monarch mind control and this traumatic, just this very obvious trauma-based mind control is what they were pursuing. And even with, I'm doing a series right now because I remember when I covered the Detroit affair, that man, I'll tell you, that criminal case affected me more than anything I've ever studied.
Yeah,
right?
dude. I read the Program to Kill prologue before bed at like 1 a.m, and I was like,
no good.
Okay, I guess I'm gonna go to sleep now.
Yeah, good luck with that.
We had just started like talking again when I did the pedophiocracy series, didn't we?
Yeah.
I couldn't get over it. I couldn't stop talking about it. It was bothering me. I was in a really dark place after I read that book and I did the series on it. Yep. And
that's a good sign you have a soul there, ma'am, because that's some dark shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Some dark shit. Yeah, Mark Dutroux was one of the worst things I ever read about, ever.
Yeah. And you know, through the investigation, they connect back to the Satanic Order of Abrasax or the Abraxas, the chicken snake god, whatever you want to refer to it as. But I mean, legitimately, the high priestess of the order was sending. They had like a dialogue between Bernard Weinstein, one of the key accomplices in the Dutroux network that was helping Dutroux abduct the children, raping them while they're in shackles and putting them in the dungeons, like terrible things. But what I found so fascinating about it all, just in reference to the sort of this reoccurring and resurfacing Nazi thread and element that exists within this context of monarch is, and by the way, key instrumental operatives have been named, in terms of who kind of like suggested this path to Alan Dulles, which then apparently kind of embraced it and facilitated the path, and as a good sociopath would do. But obviously,
yeah, those Dulles boys, they are a lot of trouble, aren't they?
Honestly, but the only point I really wanted to make about that is just that the grandmother of Regina Louf, who's X1 in the Belgian X files, right? The X dossier that was made public by WikiLeaks and kind of helped expose so much of the details of the individual abusers within the network of Detroit. And she claimed, man, her grandmother was the individual who had she was forced to sexually sort of gratified to please her in sexual ways. And again, it points out the familial dynastic pedophilic imprint that is so very obvious and resurfacing in every single one of these networks, which is so fascinating, especially the state-sponsored heavy intelligence footprint, examples that we can point to. But the fact of the matter is that her grandmother, Regina Louf's grandmother, she was a collaborator during World War II, running 2 brothels, one of which was for Nazi officers and another for Nazi soldiers, just the regular infantry. And she was briefly detained after the war in Nokke, I believe, is where she was detained. But then she's released and she goes on and finds her way to Belgium and opens up a new brothel and continues on with this enterprise. And so to me, it's like, are we supposed to chalk this up to another coincidence that there's no way this had anything to do with monarch mind control and the sort of overall umbrella?
No way, dude.
Yeah. There's no way in my mind
no, it's all we're talking about the mashing. Like, so we're seeing like elements of what Jim Garrison would describe as kind of this. And when he's facing off against Johnny Carson in regards to the JFK matters and his grand jury against this network, again, early he was not fully aware, but aware of the process that he was up against here in this network. Right. Again, they were operating in and around his entire investigation, including Kerry Thornley. Mm-hmm. But we see him explain. Carson's like, well, hey, wait a second there, Jim. It seems like you're describing different things here as you're trying to tell me about this conspiracy to kill the president. and he puts well, you know what? I'll just if I may, I'll just play the clip. I have a clip of it right here. But he's telling Carson, he's like, yeah. These are all different components of a much larger animal, a much larger machine, right? And I think what Garrison is doing here is describing the process without saying it's the process, because again, he had the early understandings of some of these matters, but didn't fully understand perhaps what he was dealing with. So let me pull that clip up here before we go any further. But yeah, didn't have a way to describe it other than he's trying to describe the fundamental elements of it, right? And he knows, again, he's got Tommy Jude Baumler on his radar. He's got Fred Chrisman, the first UFO witness, on his radar. His chief suspect, one of his chief suspects in his grand jury is Lee Harvey Oswald, who is now interceding with Barbara Reed, who's another suspect there. She's a witch, local witch. They're all doing process stuff. The first Discordianism Bibles published in Garrison's office by folks connected to the process. So you can't tell me this chaos cult. They have this whole fancy backstory.
I didn't know any of this about Garrison.
It's real cute. It's real cute. But no, yeah, I'll do Garrett. I've been a Garrison super fan for years. In fact, that's how I became friends with John Barber.
Well, I love him just because Kevin Costner played him in a movie, but I had no fucking idea he was. This is like, I thought Maury was probably the first person to really put this out there. I had no idea about this.
Oh, it's not out there. Some of it's in his secret files that John Barber still got. I've been still trying to get my garbage hands on this. But he's 93 years old, Man. John Barber's an interesting man himself. He used to be a personal writer for Frank Sinatra, who ties into all these matters of the Manson families and Satanism and mafia stuff that we see depicted in this film. But
the organized crime, the organized crime footprint, helping provide that plausible deniability, sort of cutout for intelligence. They run hand in hand. They sort of coexist in that very way. And that's the same thing that happened in Watergate, right? The Columbia Plaza operation was set up, and then Joe Nesline was the key mafia, at least organized crime individual who was affiliated in DC, who was obviously helping provide the in my mind, the plausible deniability for the CIA, which is why you had Heidi Reichen claim that she had CIA protection, and that was allegedly in reality, it was Joe Nesline's network, but it was on behalf of the CIA, right? And that's what's fascinating to me is that,
and the Mormons. Don't sleep on the
Exactly.
Mormons, because
Hey.
E. Howard Hunt was employed by the Mullen Corporation, which
The
was
Mullen
being run by
Company,
U.S. Senator, future U.S. Senator from Utah, Bob Bennett, and Skull and Bonesman, Bob Bennett.
Exactly.
And they were shut down over all these matters because they were a CIA Mormon front company that were employing the Watergate burglars, notably E. Howard Hunt.
Yes.
Then
And
you
by the
had
way, Douglas
Woodward,
Caddy. Oh,
the
Bob
fucking-
Woodward.
you had this naval intelligence guy who'd never been
Right.
a journalist before in his life just suddenly get this big case. I mean,
my
that right there, like I didn't learn probably till I was in my 30s.
Right.
You watch all the President's Men, you see all that shit. I mean,
Mhm.
they put a nice little bow on it.
Office of Naval Intelligence, right before he's then sent to the Washington Post to sort of control the narrative in terms of the Watergate scandal, which is, again, it's like, what is Deep Throat? Yeah, it's a sort of like, in my mind, it's this, again, it's a construct, but it's all these different voices at the time, there are at least it's a sort of I think there's at least 4 people that could fall under the umbrella of what Deep Throat technically represented at that time, but at the same time, it's just, again, it was a strategic and convenient way to obviously provide a source that in reality was just the intelligence apparatus running the Moore Radford spy scandal, which were conducting surveillance on the Nixon administration. And it's fascinating to see every aspect of. By the way, Douglas Caddy is employed by Mullen and Company as well. He's E. Howard Hunt's personal private attorney at the time. And
that's what I'm saying, dude. The Mormons don't get
yeah.
blamed for any of this shit, dude.
Nothing. And he's
So-
what for United Fruit? He's up there running
Well-
PR for United
well,
Fruit, allegedly.
You're hitting, first of all, so you're hitting way too many you're setting off too many Kill Bill sirens in my brain hole at the moment, because
I'm
United
sorry,
Fruit
dude.
all has to do with Carl Linder, the 33rd degree Freemason out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and that's a little bit of a different tale altogether, because he's behind all the Bush machine too, as well, et cetera, et cetera. He owned the Reds. He owned basically the city of Cincinnati at one point in time. His son kind of does
AJ,
that now.
you got to send me a couple things because I'm gonna have to. At this point, you've convinced me. My next solo project will be the Society of the Cincinnati. I have to. There's no
Well,
way
I like it, sir. I like it, sir. And let me bring us back to this conversation here tonight before I play this clip from Garrison about what we're looking at in the film Inherent Vice is this machination of this deep state, matters of national security Nazi cult network, right? Which has different faces and stuff to it. And that's what Garrison kind of has explained to Carson in a very rudimentary sense. Very smart man, but he didn't quite have the full understanding, because this is 68. And by 77, during the assassination, or not, that's the 90s, during the House Select Committee on Assassinations, Garrison writes them a letter. It's in the record saying, if you solve the Wandering Bishop situation, you'll solve the Kennedy murder. Something to that effect, which again, all revolves around those Wandering Bishops, Tommy Jude Baumler, David Ferry, Chrisman.
Dude, that's it.
Yeah.
The Wandering Bishops came onto my radar whenever I was just figuring out the connection there between the process and the incorporation in Louisiana, and how much they were fundamental in the JFK architecture of the assassination there in obviously what was it, 544 Camp Street? Isn't that what it was? That was the location where all the intelligence apparatus just sort of flocked to.
It was just coincidence.
Yeah, exactly. Office of Naval Intelligence is in that building. That was one of my favorite scenes in the actual film itself.
It's a great scene. It's very indicative of what was going on down there, as far as that was a basis of operations for a lot of it. Spook activity, administratively speaking.
Yes.
To picture the headquarters aspect to manage their southern operations, which is what it was doing. That's what their Cuba operations, etc. But in regards to all these matters, go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to mention the fact that Henry Lee Lucas, right from The Hand of Death that you mentioned earlier, Julia, he claimed that that basically when he was being trained in these various sophisticated techniques in child abduction, in targeted assassinations, just sort of the gambit in terms of how you would conduct covert operations clandestinely in under the shroud of secrecy and protection, and he was claiming that they had these sophisticated techniques in place where they would obviously know, and they would be tipped off as to when there would be these flyovers, these aerial flyovers for surveillance purposes by the military, various officials within the just local officials and authorities and things of that nature. They would get tipped off anytime there would be a sort of flyover where they had apparently they had this sort of just presiding cover operation in place where they would be able to hide their footprint from the air, right? So that way they wouldn't be exposed. Basically, is
you just set up some camouflage things to break up the patterns.
Right. Exactly. Or they would
not as technical as it seems to be, to really hide from an aircraft like that.
Exactly.
You just got to blend in with the ground.
Right. But to me, it even lends credibility to the fact of like the story of James Wesley Howe. This is what I refer to as like just modern Gladio, in my mind, which is the strategy of tension playing out domestically, utilizing
one of Colby's programs.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And for me, you witness the fact that apparently, and these claims were made, that James Wesley Howe, so this is all surrounding the Omar Mateen Pulse nightclub shooting, right, that occurred and was very political as well. And obviously you had Sadiq Mateen, the father of the alleged perpetrator, who just shows up at the Clinton rally just right after the event takes place, and he's holding like this sign, just strategically placed just in the frame of the camera for this political rally event to take place. And again, it's opposing Trump at the time, which I found very interesting, but it's also like the terms of the sign itself were basically, it was a complete condemnation of Trump, but also like this
kind of like Chucky there at the Vigilant California rally, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what it was, that he stages this sort of like false flag pretext narrative, but also, again, he's
Omar Mateen was also a whack and hunt employee, was he not? G4S.
Dude, exactly. That G4S was obviously the new branded kind of like.
Well, if you're talking Nazis and deep state, sir, George Wackenhut is at the deep of all that mix.
George W. Bush, Iran-Contra, the Cabazon Indian Reservation, every aspect of running these covert operations, testing esoteric, what they claim to be esoteric weapon systems, like high-speed rails, or not high-speed rails, but what was the name of the? There was a specific. A weapon that they were actually testing on the Cabazon Indian Reservation that is it's escaping me at this moment. But
I mean, all of these things, I think all these things fall within this, like you're saying, the Operation Gladio, Satanic Serial Killers, Satanic Murder Inc. of the Phoenix program, and the Air America drug trafficking, and all come home. And we see all of those three programs, Colby's Queers programs, not this Colby. That's not Bill Colby. I'm talking about Bill Colby. We see all his programs that he basically invented or was, made his bones running, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brought home. And again, we see those elements depicted in and around these Nazi Satanists, cult fuckers, and their Golden Fang, other style operations that have embedded all throughout every aspect of Los Angeles government. And again, that's what has motivated Bigfoot Bjornson here on his rampage of disruption of those events. But we also see here, if I may bring us back to the Nazi Satanist stuff, in the Manson family murders, again, major narrative in this film, Inherent Vice, and we see Sharon Tate, her father, Lieutenant Colonel Paul Tate, U.S. Army Intelligence, again, very spooky. His second great-grandfather was Lieutenant Jesse Tate of the Virginia chapter of the Society of the Cincinnati.
Wow.
The only male descendant he is still yet to produce was in the belly, 8.5-month pregnant of his daughter, Sharon Tate, would have been the hereditary descendant of that bloodline within the Society of Cincinnati. You can look at it as the elimination of that bloodline.
It was a fertility death ritual then, right? Like in a certain way, do you think? Because that seems to fit the pattern as far
Well, I
as
think it's part of that whole hog effect, right? So they're doing the fertility death ritual. There's a drug trafficking aspect to it.
Yeah.
There's occult sex tape aspects to these things because they're selling sex tapes and stuff like that. But there's also a fact that there's probably a hit, right? So you got Sebring, you got Folger. That's obviously coke, and Sebring's a Scientologist. Folger's mother's doing the free clinic stuff. She's deeply involved in the coke and trafficking trade. They're all doing process stuff.
Right.
And then you also see the aspect that this may be a hit also included in that, where they're ending the Tate bloodline in that secret society that started America.
That's interesting.
And on that note, also Leno LaBianca, if you want to understand. So I always think, I've always thought, and I continue to focus more of my research and activities here, Operation GCD, and I thank all of you all to join me here tonight to get a little GCD and the folks of the interwebs, is understanding the victimology, what brought this victim into those circumstances, and what were the instances in their environment that may have caused that. You look at Leno LaBianca, yeah, he's got mob stuff, that's fairly well documented. That he also bought that home from Walt Disney, which is weird. And Disney had Disneyland launched their haunted house new museum or new ride that night, the Haunted Mansion, on the night of Leno LaBianca's murder, in a home formerly owned by Walt Disney. That's not creepy.
That's very creepy.
So you got the occult stuff there too, but you also have Leno LaBianca, speaking of Nazis. Before Project Paperclip, it was called Operation Overcast, and they were in a camp called Camp Overcast in southern Bavaria, and from July of 1945 to March of 1946. The E6 military police sergeant in charge of that camp appears to have been Leno LaBianca.
Oh my God.
What?
Never fails, man.
I have not heard that one.
No.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. Here's where I'm at with it. I say appears because I've got his unit. So I retired as an E7 Master Sergeant in the Air Force Military Police. He was the Army Air Corps Military Police, the preceding kind of outfit because the Air Force wasn't a thing yet. But back then in E6, that was at least what the kind of power or responsibilities they put on an E7 or an E8, because they didn't have an E7 or E8 back then. It went E6 and then E7 was chief. So I can speak. He would in E6 there would have had a lot of responsibilities. He had no ranking sergeants there. They were on paper assigned to the headquarters unit 8 miles away from Camp Overcast. All I'm saying is Camp Overcast had an MP, some MPs guarding it, and there's no MPs needed at the headquarters unit 8 miles away. So they're on paper there. He's the one in charge. I think he knew a lot about that Nazi program, it seems.
Makes sense, man.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So on that note, when we're talking about Nazis, mafias, infiltration of governments, cults, drug trafficking, Hollywood, etc., I think Jim Garrison is trying to describe these elements early on in his investigation when trying to bring any sort of criminal charges against the whole Kennedy assassination, right?
I'm telling you, man.
That's terribly confusing. And don't you seem to be riding off in all directions?
It seems like it, doesn't it? Let me ask you.
It certainly does.
Right. Let me ask you first, how many hours do I have to answer this list you just went over?
Well, I know that we have the rest of the program this evening. I understand that we can't sit here and completely recreate or theorize on what happened. But I just wanted to get the chronology of the statements.
Well, let me see if I can put this in focus. If I were to say, for example, that an elephant has a tail, and he's gray, and he has 4 legs, it would be possible for somebody to point out, just a minute, you just finished saying an elephant had a tail, now you say he has 4 legs, and now you say he's gray. The point I'm making is that each of these factors is a characteristic of one being, and in a complex situation like this, it's possible to be standing at a different point of view and describing different aspects. For example, we find that in the group.
So that was just, he goes on to provide more details. I think he does a good description of trying to describe this elephant in America's room, if you will, and and there's a lot of pushback he got. Speaking of these ongoing enterprises, old Ronnie Riggs gets a lot of credit, not for the right reasons, not the least of which starring in a film alongside Mansonite and Lieutenant Bobby Beausoleil in Mondo Hollywood. Nonetheless, he blocked subpoenas of Jim Garrison's. Jim Garrison was trying to extradite. I always say it's Fred Chrisman, but it's not. It's a different guy. But but he was involved in. He was another guy, one of these deep state kind of assassins like Crispin, working for the aerospace industry. Again, Nazis, right? So and Garrison was trying to extradite him from California, and Ronnie Reagan said nope. He was the governor at the time. The same governor that, as we see in the film Inherent Vice, he's the one who privatizes all the mental health institutions, which then is explained in this film as the cult seizing on it as a profiteering enterprise, which is probably the reason why he did it in the first place.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes sense as far as, especially considering Reagan's role and his administration as far as the governorship in California in terms of the Danny Castellero's octopus and the Promise Software scandal, right? And just that alone, and all connects back to the Cabazon Indian Reservation, where it was the rail gun that they were testing as far as the esoteric weapon system, one of them being what they were attempting to develop under the Wackenhut Security Corporation, while they were running this sort of strange, they were utilizing the individuals on the reservation as essentially slave labor, and they're flying in illegal Mexican nationals to cook methamphetamine on the reservation. It's like fascinating what they were all involved in, and allegedly, according to Michael Riconosciuto, who was running covert operations, according to him, and then later on kind of hung out to dry in that concept. They claimed he was he was smuggling heroin, and he was caught up in this operation. But in my mind, this dude was running the heroin smuggling operation on behalf of the enterprise and was hung out to dry because he became too exposed in reality in terms of providing the back door into the Promise Software on the Cabazon Indian Reservation. That's what they claimed happened. Promise Software is a case management software, allegedly, that wasn't it the Hamiltons or some shit? I forget the name of the
developed
people,
by the NSA and fought out between the
That's
there's a lot of spook fight warfare going on there that's sold some sort of public effort.
Right.
I like your brain holes that.
This paves the way, yeah.
What's that, sir?
It paves the way for Reagan to enter the White House, honestly, in many ways. I think this was just another sort of part of the process, just as far as like providing his value, in certain ways.
No, literally, because Riconosciuto's in the Haight-Ashbury with Charles Manson. In fact, they're working at the Straight Theater on the opening night with the Grateful Dead, the CIA Tavistock, Bohemian Grovers, right? Again, this is all a lot of spook shit.
It's all spooky. It all glows like the sun. There's no way around it, right? It's fascinating.
And when we look at those machinations, one other aspect we see there is that Hollywood. There's a Hollywood star behind this whole enterprise of this drug trafficking, right? Again, Burke Stodger, and he's the one who, on paper, even is running the Looney Bin, the newly privatized, as they even mentioned in the film that Reagan privatized. So what are your all's thoughts there, Julia, and not Bill Colby, is in regards to some of these matters of these loony bins? Because I saw Julia shaking her head very quickly when I mentioned the loony bins. That I know you had some thoughts we previously discussed in regards to some of these matters.
Well, Go ahead. I'll let you go first, but I was just gonna say it's because we're covering mental illness and like the loony bins and stuff in our new series. The next episode we're gonna talk a little bit more about this, but like mental illness in these Laurel camps, as I call them, where people get sent to get like therapy sessioned or whatever. They're just like MK fucking. Like, they're not here to help you. It's an industry. This is all, I mean, you can say
the
what you
Amanda Bynes of the world. Are you like?
Oh, dude, Amanda Bynes, dude.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and like Harvey.
Do you know who her best friend was?
Yes,
J.J. Bryan, the leader of the Neo Process Unit. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
No,
did I beat you to it?
No, I was gonna say I only know about the Bryan guy because of you, but. Like that Friends, what was it called? The Friends of Animals or the fucking Animal Fuckers of Walmart? I always forget what they're really called.
Best Friends Animal Society?
There you go.
Yeah, man.
And Ellen DeGeneres is tied into all that, but
it's all process.
Hilarious.
Oh, it's all process. And again, it's all spook shit. So you see this dude right here. He worked directly for Kissinger's right-hand man as an assistant. This is J.J. Bryan.
Fucking face, dude.
Partying at 4 a.m. with Amanda Bynes, his best friend. This is what I'm sure Dan Schneider had his role in her downfall, but JJ
Oh,
Bryan
I'm
here
sure
started a
many that we will
neo-process
never know
cult.
their names did. I mean,
Right.
she was passed around.
Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal, Colby. I'm of the mindset that Amanda Bynes is currently the leader of that process cult.
Right, because he supposedly died, right?
What?
Yeah, he supposedly died. She's running a salon. Sounds very Jay Sebring like, if you ask me.
That's
You know
hilarious.
what I mean? It's the same. It's the same
She's
stuff.
also a spokesperson for Ozempic right now.
Typical.
You get that Ozempic vulva.
Looks
Just read an
so-
article about this yesterday.
So that dude literally, that dude Brian,
saggy.
yeah, Brian's band was called the La Biancas. Their song was Charles Manson is Jesus Christ. And
Wow,
before he's doing this,
subtlety.
he gets picked up in Libya as doing spook stuff, which he was posing as an art student. And then before that, he was working for a Mormon, by the way, from Kanab, Utah, by the way. These are the connections why I think possibly why they're in Kanab today, because Kissinger's right-hand man, Bob Cocaine Evans' boyfriend, Henry Kissinger, and his right-hand man, Brent Scowcroft, U.S. Air Force Major General, NSA or National Security Advisor to 3 different presidents, Nixon,
JJ's gone.
Ford, Reagan, and Bush. He was Kissinger's assistant there in the Nixon situation. So again, this is the national security state, and then we see his assistant starting a neo-process cult.
Amen.
I mean, that's a little on the nose, right?
Definitely.
And we see the Hollywood element. We see the Burke Stodger element there with Amanda Bynes.
Weren't you saying that when we showed the pictures of that twin ray cult guy, that you thought he looked suspiciously like? So he dies the year that cult becomes a thing. You remember
I've been communicating with Lola back and forth on that same subject because she was a little bit skeptical at first, but then she started looking at some of his photos. The dude, first of all, he's like a chameleon in the first place. Every photo you look at him, he's a little bit different. I'm convinced, dude, that dude in that twin rays cult is JJ Bryan. He faked his death. Dude, first of all, he's from Portland, Oregon. He's already got Oregon connects.
Interesting.
I looked into it a little bit more after you said that, because you're not someone to just pull something out of your ass like that.
Right.
No,
I'm
not
convinced-
traditionally, sir. I appreciate you noticing that.
I think there's something to it for sure. We'll have to follow up on that.
It's financed by Scientology too. These twin rays are all financed. So, are you familiar with Reed Slatkin?
Yeah, we talked about him in that episode.
No,
this
my
guy.
apologies, sir. Austin, are you familiar with Reed Slatkin? He's an early internet engineer, pioneer fellow. We did a lot of fraud stuff with a couple of other fellow Scientologists.
Like an ARPANET type?
Kind of almost an extension
oh
of
my
that.
God.
Really.
Interesting. Okay, go ahead.
He's in the mix with the early search engines. So is along with Ghislaine Maxwell's sister and her husband, who's the son of Jack Parsons' number 2, Melina,
Right.
from his
my
Suicide
God.
Squad. So they're in the early machinations of these early search engines. Reed Slatkin's there, and these Scientologists are all over the early machinations of the interwebs, especially anything blocking anything. Scientologists developed that because they want to block shit about you learn about Xenu or Elron or some shit, and then they also developed these search engine stuff with folks like Reed Slatkin. Well, his 2 associates never went to prison; they went to Oregon and later would finance this twin race cult where this JJ Bryan guy looks exactly like the fucking cult leader, if you ask me.
Yeah, and the timing it lands everything up.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, JJ Bryan's death is like, he's 38 and he just died with no cause of death. He has no funeral. His gravesite is a placard, a temporary paper placard at a memorial garden.
Wow.
Now he's banging this porn star chick who talks in British accent.
And his assistant came from the Valley there in Los Angeles. The moment I found out she came from the Valley, just her general look, I'm like, oh, she did porn.
That became the theme of the show, actually.
I hope she doesn't have Ozempic.
It's the dead eyes, the Valley address, you know what I mean? It's it's the dead stare in the eyes. I'm like, it's the general appearance if she looks like a whore, she did.
Oh my God.
Just wanted to say also, since we're talking about kind of the end of the movie about like the Laurel encampment where
I was trying to find. I got sidetracked and I deterred you, but please more on the mental health stuff as I try to find that clip.
I wanted to say before it escaped me that it reminded when we see the guy like at the end of the movie and Joaquin's like talking to him or whatever. It reminded me of like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where you just kind of become part of it. There is no escaping, there is no leaving. you're fully like you're committed at that point. You know what
Well,
I'm saying?
that's what Owen Wilson says to him, right? Because he's like, "Hey, man,
Exactly.
I can help you out." He's like, "No, you can't help me out. In fact, you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble trying to help me out." Because Owen Wilson initially wanted to go see what his wife and daughter were doing because he faked his death. They thought he was dead. And remember, she comes to see Doc later. So everyone's coming at different angles and times to come see Doc to help solve some mysteries, and they all just happen to coincide and kind of coalesce in the same mystery, right?
It was that conversation where Coy, Owen Wilson's character, right? He essentially asked the question to Joaquin Phoenix, right? Suppose your mom was on smack, right? Just in terms of the U.S., he's explaining the current situation we're in.
It's a great way to explain it. Please continue. Yeah, that's a good scene.
And wouldn't you try to help her? You know, I just thought it was so funny because Doc was like, are you saying that the U.S. is somebody's mom and that she's strung out on heroin, basically? And then
he's trying to explain because again, he's trying to explain how he got stuck in that mess, right?
Exactly, because he says, "Man, I don't belong here, man."
Right?
Like he legitimately, like says that to him when he's saying that. Oh, so the members of Vigilant California, whoever you're working for, they didn't buy that narrative that you just spun to me in terms of. He says like after he questions, are you saying that the U.S. is somebody's mom who's strung out on smack that
he gets aggravated, right? Because he's not getting it, right?
Exactly.
Because Phoenix is trying to wrap his brain hole around this elephant. He's like, "See, you work for Vigilant California, you're working for the feds over here. You're a dead saxophone player over here." Then he finds out he gets linked in there with Shasta Faye Hepworth. So Phoenix is like, "I don't know what's going on, man."
Exactly. And he's saying, and he brings up Vietnam, right? In this context, in terms of like the mother strung out on heroin. And he says, sending people off to die in the jungles for no reason, something is wrong and suicidal about that she just can't stop. That was something that just stuck with me for a moment because as soon as Doc tries to make sense of it, you know, as you mentioned, he gets a little frustrated and he tries to explain to him, "Hey man, like I don't belong here." And then he goes on to say, after Doc asks him like, who like sets you up with this organization, you know, Vigilant California, for you to work for them, and who set you up with these people, type of thing. And that is when he kind of goes into this sort of personal monologue about when he first started snitching. Right. And he talks about how basically he realized that in that moment when he first started snitching, how people they asked all of these various questions that they already knew the answers to.
Yep.
And it was only because they wanted to hear the answer outside of their own head. Right. That's essentially
interesting,
what
right? Because you have this whole trippy thing of what's going on in his head, right? I think that's a really interesting scene you're describing.
Especially because the last thing that he says to him is, he essentially says, "You better find Shasta Faye," right? And then he repeats that, I believe, as well. And especially just understanding that she, of course, had her and Mickey Wolfman, right, had gone missing there after boarding the Golden Fang. And
I'm glad you brought that up because I have two clips for us to describe exactly that.
The 3-hour tour, man.
That's a great scene right there.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm telling you, man, there's something special about the dynamic between all three of those characters specifically, right? Josh Brolin, Benicio, and Joaquin. But yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of that. But I definitely feel like every time they have a direct sort of anytime they engage directly with each other, it seems like it's in a very questionable moment for the audience to interpret for themselves, you know, and that's it's just interesting to me. Yeah.
No, for sure. So in regards to where they went, because she's gone, right? We find out from Benicio del Toro, one of Phoenix's handlers, if you will, there, this Marine time lawyer who keeps coming in with some, save his ass and, give him some key details. that that's when he starts learning about this Hollywood connection with the Burke Dodgers. So what were your all's thoughts, Colby, Team Peach and a pair there, if you will? What were your all's thoughts on the Hollywood connection and this? Obviously you all have gone deep in the Laurel Canyon stuff as well, and one name that doesn't necessarily get named, and I'll just give you a spoiler alert where my brain hole's at. Marlon Brando doesn't often get described in matters with the Manson narratives, but he was part of that whole crew. And he also doesn't get described a lot in Laurel Canyon narratives. He kind of skirts around these things, but I think a large part, the guy we're seeing here, Burke Dodger, is Marlon Brando. That's my opinion based on a lot of character details. But what were your all's thoughts on some of these Laurel Canyon Hollywood aspects?
Yeah, I hadn't put that one together in particular, but that's a good one. I would say that just the general COINTELPRO, they're trying to recruit him in the FBI office, kind of like tongue in cheek. And then I really do think
Book of Mormon, right?
Yeah. I really do think Owen Wilson's character was supposed to be in the Wrecking Crew. I just think there's too many solid hints for that.
I like it.
And
run by Processy and Phil Spector.
There you go.
Met his wife while he was taking a big diarrhea shit, and she was
Yeah, that was a very romantic description.
Very romantic. Yeah, somehow had a hard on.
We got Burke's. I know, right? That was kind of. I mean, the first time I watched, I was like, that's a bit disturbing. You kind of just fast forward after that.
I like.
So we got Burke's
jumpers.
Yeah.
We got Burke's Dodgers owns the Golden Fang ship, but then he learns that Burke's Dodger runs Chris Skylodon, right? Chris Skylodon is the name of the loony bin up in Ojai. Now that's interesting. There's a couple loony bins in Ojai. I think that could be referencing to, not the least of which possibly nods at the Esalen Institute. But what was your all's take on the actual actor here? Then, if you weren't thinking of Marlon Brando before, who did you have in mind as far as the character representation?
Nobody in particular. I kind of thought it was an amalgamation, but
Sneak Attack.
Yeah, when you describe Brando kind of skirting in the Dave McGowan narrative and all that, I'd never even thought of that. But yeah, he's right in the middle of all of that shit.
Yeah, McGowan references him in Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, but he just doesn't get a lot of press and a lot of other takes of that scene.
But his reference even is very minimal compared to like the Rat Pack.
Very minimal.
All those guys.
Yeah, more focused on like the Peter Sellers of that generation.
Nicholson.
Well, Nicholson and Brando are at the hip, so they share the same driveway. So if you go to the north part of Laurel Canyon, you had the south part of Laurel Canyon, you had Mulholland. North part of Laurel Canyon, you had Mulholland Drive. Austin can correct me if my Los Angeles geographical references are wrong, but it's at one end of the Laurel Canyon. You got Mulholland Drive. Right off that corner, you had living Aldous Huxley, and almost right next door was Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando, and they shared a driveway.
Wasn't Warren Beatty somewhere in there?
Yeah, Warren Beatty. Yeah, not far off that mix. But and also of note, when Philip Van Adder, the LAPD detective, who again is much, I think, a character basis in the Bigfoot Bjornsson character of Brolin, when he arrested Polanski at the Chateau Marmont for that rape of that 13-year-old in 1977, that rape occurred on Nicholson's couch, and it's not often described that Cocaine Bob Evans came over to help clean up the show, but where Brando was in the mix is often not described. And Brando, there's like 3 or 4 folks that got murdered in that home, and as soon as Brando died, Nicholson bought the property and destroyed the home.
Yeah, that's what I was under the impression that that was the reason, basically, that Nicholson had purchased the property itself. And then also you have all of this context of Marlon Brando's strange sexual activity where he's just like, having sex with prominent men. Dude. Yeah.
You ain't kidding. So he's got like 13 kids. Nicholson's got about 13 kids. I mean, Brando, dude, one of Brando's kids, I think it was Christian, got kidnapped by a bunch of hippies and hid down in Mexico. Brando hired literally a private detective with a hook for a hand. I'm not making that shit up.
Wow.
Another one of his sons, Nico Brando, was best friends with Michael Jackson. I mean, Brando's a very interesting.
Oh my God. Michael Jackson. That is too funny. Especially considering the security guard that was involved with Diddy there, that obviously was allegedly the one to, at least be present during Michael Jackson's supposed death, right? And that's very hilarious as far as the Diddy connection there, and and how much they were seemingly, and the underground tunnel grotto like that was happening there with Diddy as well, which again, it's like, why are these underground tunnel systems coming up so very often in terms of these networks, especially in their modern form? Like Epstein had something similar, which is very interesting. And
how about P. Diddy and Hugh Hefner over there in the Playboy Mansion? You know, they got tunnels all up through there. Again, there's a lot of tunnels documented in the Weird Scenes book there in the older scene.
In Laurel. Exactly.
Yeah.
That are connecting those very properties and one of them was what was the name of that property that the guitarist was living in for a time for some
the
reason.
log cabin.
Yeah, the log cabin. Yeah, and then you had the double staircase.
That's not just some guitarist, sir. That's Frank Zappa. He's another
major
figure.
That's what I meant. Yeah,
that often gets not sold because like he's responsible for acts like Alice Cooper. I mean, so much stuff he's responsible for.
Captain Beefheart.
There you go. Well, I was about to say, relative to the Manson situation, you have a lot of crossovers with Captain Fuck, which was his sidekick, and Captain Beefheart, which his music was produced by the Colombo crime family.
Dude, he used to fucking like lock his musicians up and sleep deprive and starve them.
I didn't know about that until Colby told me, and I actually like the music.
That's in Weird.
I never heard of the Beefheart connection here.
Yeah, so Captain Beefheart.
Captain Beefheart. Yes, sir. Please tell us about it.
I think he was a high school underling, right? Zappa, didn't he? But
wow. He was up there in like Palmdale where all the defense contractors are. Dude, I moved out here just like in 2017, trying to make like this sort of socioeconomical kind of like transition from Northwest Arkansas, which was that's
a different that's a whole eye-opening experience from one place to the other, huh?
Honestly, I'm grateful just for the perspective gained. More than anything, although I will say there are wonderful things about everywhere you live, but essentially I will say it was I think it was very important for me personally in terms of my own philosophy on life in general. But I was forced to move to the high desert, and so that area, Lancaster, is really near Palmdale, very close by, and essentially you're surrounded by defense contractors. Right, Lockheed and Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, everything is represented there, and there's signs everywhere. Like cancerous chemicals are present, right, in just the pool, right, the public pool or whatever, and they're running all these experiments. You hear like these sonic booms that shake your apartment occasionally. Like that was the experience. I remember I went out on my run one day. I was just like going for a jog, and I didn't hear anything until a stealth bomber was legitimately flying right over me, right? And then it was just like a deafening sound, and it like blew my mind just considering.
Sometimes, sir, that's the last noise some folks hear.
That's what I thought. I thought, imagine being in a conflict zone, an active war zone, and this is the last experience you have. Like that was my instant thought. And it gave me a little bit of an additional perspective in terms of like, once again, just like not ever considering the sort of on the ground effective consequence playing out, and how much it truly is just the most dystopian vision you could imagine seeing. And once you witness it yourself, it's a little bit harder to deny that fact. You know what I'm saying? And in an intelligence community like Frank Zappa grew up in with his father so much, I mean, like the connections in his family.
Well, his wife, Gail Sloman, was in kindergarten class with Jim Morrison, if I may, sir. So you see these deeper connections throughout all of
Mama
it.
Cass.
And
Mama Cass
Elliott, baby. Oh my God. Well, she's definitely such a major part inside that sort of the scenes inside the canyon in a way, but
and a major figure in the process movement as well, like her associate John Phillips. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
No, she's a big witch, physically and otherwise.
Absolutely. And her sister has connections to folks like out in the Son of Sam cult, as documented in the Maury Terry files. And because the Kunkel sister there, she was also a singer. And again, Mama Cass and John Phillips are documented financing, I believe it's called financiers of the process activity in Los Angeles. And you see John Phillips being deeply involved in the cocaine trade, much like his pal Cocaine Bob Evans, both getting busted for cocaine trafficking. So We see that represented here with this Hollywood actor Burke Stodger. We see them. He's got the Golden Fang ship. They're going to Polynesia. Just saying, Marlon Brando's got a Polynesian island to date. Owns a Polynesian island himself in his trust for his family. In fact, that one fellow that got murdered by his son in his house there off of Mulholland Drive in Laurel Canyon was a member of the French Polynesian royal family. So a lot of weird stuff there. But we see them being involved in the drug trafficking and this larger enterprise of hood rat shit activity of this cult network and tyranny, if you will. But, it's often, I think one thing I think folks don't often consider, and I think it's one thing that easily, kind of dismisses. Yeah, Tom Cruise is involved in spook stuff, or Marlon Brando's importing cocaine, you know what I mean? Or Garth Brooks is a serial killer. But you know what? Sometimes I think these things are reasonable conclusions.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that, just knowing the strange connections there between Mama Cass and Terry Melcher and John Phillips and Abigail Folger, and they're all like, was it MDA? I'm trying to remember now the substance that allegedly there was this huge
MDA.
There was a huge falling out allegedly, and one of the key distributors that had an intelligence background that was providing the MDA to Abigail Folger and the Mama Cass network through her house, where a lot of this was happening. Apparently, go ahead.
No, his name was Puck, right?
Yeah, I believe that was the name. Yeah,
and we see Puck Beaverton here, the Nazi biker gang guy,
for real. And when Doc goes to that crash pad for the spooks in Topanga Canyon, the first thing he sees is a skinhead with a swastika on his jean jacket, right? Like, isn't that?
Well, he sees this guy there too. If you see him in the background, he's closing the door there.
Yes,
Puck Beaverton's always there.
And by the way, didn't you recognize the sort of the Final Supper? Right, the Lord that was essentially taking place in a way like the Lord's Supper, the symbology, the symbolic nature of that scene was
eating pizza.
Yes, which again, you consider the idea of what we talked about privately before the show started about how Paul Thomas Anderson, the director himself, then went on to obviously just create and produce and direct the film known as Licorice Pizza, right? And that, to me, it seemed like
sounds kind of creepy.
It's very creepy in terms of at least the pedophilic symbology, but at the same time, I think the plot line of that film is, like I mentioned, it makes you very uncomfortable. You know what I mean? It seems as if it's like in a way, it's sort of like a pedophile's magnum opus. It reminded me of Leon the Professional in certain aspects of it, right? Which, you remember that strange Natalie Portman film with that hitman?
So creepy, dude.
So creepy. It feels like the director was a straight up pedophile.
It's almost as creepy as the time Brooke Shields played a 10-year-old prostitute in a Hollywood film and they put her in Playboy naked as a 10-year-old.
That really happened.
Almost
I didn't
creepy.
know this.
Yeah, that happened. That's a real thing.
She was in the Sugar and Spice edition.
Wow.
It was another French director who did these things. So,
my God.
But I like. What is that, sir?
I think his name's Luc Besson.
I think his name is Bullshit. Bullshit.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
10-year-old Poisson.
So we're seeing the machinations of all of this whole network, this cult, these Nazis, and Joaquin Phoenix's character starting to understand it when he visits the booby hatch that Japonica Fenway got sent to. The powerful attorney, their daughter, who gave him his first job to find her, a couple years prior. We see all that kind of coalescing here towards the end of the film in the Chris Skylodon, which is this the booby hatch up in Ojai, the Looney Bin, and it's run by Burke Stodger, where they literally have a theater. We saw in this clip just previous to this scene. They have a theater that plays 24/7 Burke Stodger films. How is that not some sort of hypnotic programming?
Exactly.
You even see the doctor. He walks into the theater and he's immediately reciting the line from the film. And it says, "You get out of here, commie," or whatever that is, right?
God, I'm gonna have to rewatch the because I only got about halfway again on my rewatch, so I'm gonna have to watch the rest of it tonight. Honestly,
do y'all remember that scene? He's like, "Alexander Graham Bell was an American. He invented this telephone, you commie bastard."
Yeah.
It's too funny,
yeah, so it is that whole Red Scare thing. And again, the Burke Dodgers, as Benicio del Toro explains in one scene, he's trying to get back in the good graces of Hollywood and the American government. That's why he's financing this shit, because he got ousted for being a commie. Well, so did Marlon Brando. You know who got Marlon Brando back in Hollywood? Old Cocaine Bob Evans.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So we see that parallel too. But I do like this scene because they also go on to say, like, oh, pay no attention to the man with the like I was saying with the keynote. These are not the Satanists you're looking for.
Exactly.
Jedi mind trick Joaquin Phoenix. That is not a man with a Nazi tattoo on his face.
That's a Hindu symbol piece.
Yeah, he says that's an ancient Hindu. So we see again, like, everything's kind of coalescing in there. There's old Cocaine Bob and Henry Kissinger, JJ Bryan's boss, best friend there.
My God, man.
Hey, JJ, have you ever seen that Comedy Central cartoon, Kid Notorious?
I love that cartoon.
So you have seen it. Every time you mention Cocaine Bob, I want to ask if you know about it. So there you go.
He got the cocaine-induced idea to make a cartoon about his life, literally his true life, according to him. So his next door neighbor Slash from Guns N' Roses is a star in it. I think he's got a talking cat, right? You know what I mean? He's got he's got a butler situation. It's real weird, but it's right. It gets you right in the it paints a great picture inside the cocaine fueled mind of old Robert Evans here, who, by the way, hails from Westchester County, New York. It's a real den of iniquity there.
Wow.
Which one is Bob?
On the right.
Oh, the shirtless bastard. I don't know what happened before or after this picture, but that's the man who brings us the national security state, Henry Kissinger, whose right-hand man, Brent Scowcroft, would then produce one of these neo-process cults there with J.J. Bryan.
Telling you, man, it's if you know just how well connected the Henry Kissingers of the world truly are, you know what I mean? It's just like, I remember whenever I covered I believe it was the Pilgrim Society and the Anglo-American establishment. It reminds me honestly of just like they need an Anglo-white man on the strip, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, that's what it reminded me of. But yeah, I mean, what are the sort of loyalties and affiliations for the fraternal organizations that they belong to? I mean, you see the Henry Kissingers of the world, and they're members of these.
He's a Pilgrim Society guy.
Yeah,
he's a Pilgrim Society guy. And if I may, the Pilgrim Society started by U.S. Senator from New York, Chauncey Depew, a hereditary member of the Society of Cincinnati. But please continue.
Yes. Which that's another reason why, because like when I did the Pilgrim Society episode, I consistently continued to obviously come up against this reoccurring Society of the Cincinnati that I couldn't seem to I couldn't seem to just find my way. Just it was very interesting. It consistently came up, and again, Knights of Malta member Alexander Haig, who's very much involved with Henry Kissinger as well. And I think that,
So I think what you're describing is what I describe as the anti-liberty faction of the Society of the Cincinnati, these feuding factions, and they manifest in varying capacities, but the British invasion is a good way to put it with the Pilgrim Society. Would you believe a founding member of the Process Church is the daughter of a hereditary member of the Society of Cincinnati out of the South Carolina chapter? His name is Staten Drayton, Astor Drayton. His first cousin was the financier of the Church of Satan and the benefactor to Anton LaVey. True story. That shit up.
Wait. What was this guy's name? His name was Satan, for real?
Yeah, well, his name was John Astor Drayton. He's a Gadsden Drayton Astor fellow. Okay. So the Astors are.
He's an Astor.
For real? Yeah.
Do you know that? Who's the Astor that was in the 107 prominent names in Epstein's Black Book? It was one of they were a Pilgrim Society member. Yeah. Keep talking
on that one. I'm not sure on that one,
dude. It's fascinating, but go ahead, keep talking.
But his cousin Astor was married to this fella named Bouvier. He was the heir to the Vickers Gun Manufacturing Company, who financed LaVey's hero, which was this fellow by the name of Basil Zarhoff, who was this international gun trafficker and cult fucker. So he was in competition. Some folks claim he was the most wicked man in the world, not Crowley. So the folks that financed him was his Vickers fortune. The heir to that was who by the owners. He calls it an autobiography. It's written by his second wife, Blanche Barton. But LaVey's autobiography says that's who financed and was an OG member, was this Bouvier fellow who was the heir to that Vickers company. And LaVey says himself numerous times how he venerates this Basil Zarhoff fellow. So again, that's who financed Basil Zarhoff. So Bouvier's wife is this Astor lady whose first cousin's Astor with Satan Astor Drayton, and Satan Astor Drayton's daughter married Timothy Wiley. Timothy Wiley's the Fozzie the Bear guy up here, I think, is who Timothy Wiley is. That's Robert. That's Muppet de Grimston. That's Timothy Wiley's best friend, Muppet de Grimston.
Have you watched Archive 81 on Netflix?
I've never heard of it, ma'am.
Well, we should cover it for Halloween because a lot of these names you're mentioning, they use those names in Archive 81. They even use like the apartment that they moved into is called the Vickers, and they like a lot of the characters, their names are like these names here.
Yeah, and they have this big DNA collection thing going on.
Yeah, they have like an ancestry DNA.
Come on.
I'm serious.
Archive 81, 2022 horror.
You need to watch it. I made Colby watch it. It's incredible.
It's good.
I appreciate the recommendation. I will check it out. As I mentioned, ma'am, I'm going to be doing every film review in Halloween or month of October's horror Halloween focus. So I'll add that one to the list because I don't do a lot of horror and Halloween stuff. So
you'll like it.
I appreciate your recommendation on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, Austin, you would probably dig it too. Archive 81, Netflix.
No,
it's good.
I'll check it out for sure because I'm definitely always interested to see if there's some sort of value in modern Hollywood these days. You know
that's a good one.
Sometimes, right? Sometimes.
That's a good one.
By the way, it was the name, and I probably should jet within the next 15 minutes just so you guys know.
No, that's perfect. I got 2 more clips. I was just going to say let's bring this in for landing because I got 2 more clips we got to look at.
And I'm perfectly willing if you're ever interested, do a follow up on a part 2 or something because there's still plenty. But
anytime, sir, anytime.
I definitely think that and by the way, I just pulled it up. It was it was William Waldorf Astor III, the 4th Viscount Astor, is apparently who was on the specifically on the Epstein list, which I found very interesting. But
is he heir of the Waldorf school guy?
That's what the claim is here in terms of his background, which not at all is that surprising, honestly. It was
like one other guy too was in that, and he's shady as fuck too. And I always thought the Waldorf school system was like pretty cool, but you got to wonder now.
There is a celebrity that's a descendant from the Astors, and I can't remember who it is now, but they changed their last name.
Speaking of the lady that was the wife of the financier for the Church of Satan, she's a daughter of John Jacob Astor IV from the Titanic. I saw it in the chat there.
I was going to mention that too.
Yeah. Which is where Astoria, Oregon's named after, where the Goonies are from.
Oh my God.
Astoria, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's named after John Jacob Astor IV and his fur trading corporation.
Fuck me, dude. Is there nothing sacred?
Not the Goonies.
They all know each other, Julia. They all know each other. But in this scene, as we're getting to a close here, thank you all for joining me here to get a little GCD and the folks of the interwebs. This is possibly my favorite scene, but we see the whole Golden Fang thing getting messed around. They're kind of poking each other around the matters of the Golden Fang in some varying capacities, but we see Brolin kind of really starting to lose his shit here. You know what I mean? Oh, it was a shortened clip, but I thought he had the little note card game he played there because that's where he plays the note card and he finds Puck Beaverton card and he sets him up for the shootout with Puck Beaverton. But he's not done messing with old Doc there, is he? Because after the shootout, Doc comes to after getting drugged in a gunfight after getting kidnapped. Right? Mm-hmm. He finds himself old Bigfoot there's loading some of that old China White. It looks like into the trunk of his car.
Dude, I know, right? And honestly, I wondered because again, it's like that was the sort of only tool that he could potentially use to help free Owen Wilson or Coy, right? The Owen Wilson's character.
Well, that's what he's doing, right? He's like, even though he doesn't realize it yet, he thinks he's just put him on. I mean, he is putting him in danger, but he's been orchestrating the entire thing, and that is the last thing to orchestrate is to
But
you know,
that makes me feel like it's even more possible
That it's him.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Like
No,
honestly,
if you're saying that, I do want to watch it again with all that in
But
mind.
doesn't that
Definitely.
make Benicio's character a figment of his
You're right.
imagination?
Well, it
too?
would have
Totally
to make
right.
everything through his perspective.
Yeah.
Or it could be a scenario where he is both of them. Like
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
remember the scene, like when the first scene we see Benicio, I forget his name in the movie, but he comes to Joaquin Phoenix
yeah.
at the police, and he's
When he's
like,
being
"Oh,
interrogated first, and Bigfoot's like,
yeah.
and he's like, "You're gonna kick him."
yeah,
Well,
that's
we're
his
gonna catch
soul."
him, right?
Yeah, for sure. You're definitely right. As
So they
far
would
as like,
both have to be
and I
figments
can't
of
even
his.
I can't think of a scene other than when the wife's in the background during the phone calls where they're interacting with anybody else outside
right,
themselves.
or the
Right.
son pouring the whiskey for him as well when he's on the phone too. That's another thing. But
I mean,
yeah,
y'all are capturing one of the elements I love about this film, and again, it's captured also in this clip here. Everything is a dream.
right.
I got you at the office. I can be there come in.
I mean, this is the nature of the film, right? I'm just gonna speed this up a little bit, but
Could have been anybody, man. We didn't want to get into any trouble.
you see this ongoing theme, right?
At the rally for Vigilant California.
Everything's kind of hazy in every scene, right? This is that scene where he's going through the little canyon house with the Nazis,
Yeah, there's this swastika
Kept an
jacket.
unforgiving
right?
eye on anything that might become a threat.
But I mean, the whole thing's got a dream state
Concentrated
to it,
rounds
right?
are always mischievous spirit forces just past the threshold of human perception.
That's why the first time I watched it, I told Colby, I
Unless
was
it was
like,
spreading
"What the
tonight
fuck
and
was
settled in
that?"
region-wide.
Right.
I didn't even know what the fuck that
Maybe
was.
he'd have to just keep
But
driving
it's really good.
down past Long Beach, down through Orange.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, I think you are describing again one of the elements I love about the film.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said about whether or not what is real. And again, I'm gonna have to rewatch it too to get to look at more of these elements of the same character. I'm familiar with the theory, but I haven't watched it enough to really mash that together. But you know, we see all of this really after the shootout and everything and the dope. He goes back to his apartment and he's waiting for that phone call someone to come collect that dope before he negotiates Owen Wilson's release from this network, because we learn everything that like Jim Garrison was saying, all of those different parts of the elephant, it's all the same creature. We find old Japonica Fenway's dad, that very powerful attorney, who again, I don't recall the man's name on top of my brain hole, but there's a Pacific Palisades, very dark attorney fellow that helped Charles Manson out a couple times. And that's who this Parker Fenway fellow reminds me of. I'm sorry, Crocker Fenway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he said it's like a gang, and once you're in for life, right?
Yep.
Wasn't that the way he described it?
What he
as
said,
well?
yeah.
Yeah, and that was like it. That's so telling in terms of the network. That's why Jeffrey Epstein died. At least if he died, I mean, he might be. I guess it's possible.
No, you're
But-
hitting on exactly what I was going to say, because I was going to ask all three y'all here to this. What I mean, how can any of these things go on when anything we've described here tonight? This movie is depicted without these bullshit attorneys. When I say bullshit attorneys, you know, these are the dark forces that are really making the wheels move in these things, right? I mean, if you don't have these folks getting folks out of prison, keeping them out of prison, doing weird legal stuff in the mix, so like, how else do these networks survive, right? Without
and what happens to the best attorneys? They become politicians.
Yeah. Or they become Alan Dershowitz and they spend their lifetime defending snuff films.
Alan Dershowitz. There's a lot to be said about that, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've read some of his stuff. He was the youngest tenured professor of constitutional law there, specifically of law, but in focus on constitutional law at Harvard. His legal arguments are bullshit. Like I'm not an attorney. I'm also not the vice president, but I could write a better legal argument than Alan Dershowitz.
I'm telling you, man, that guy is 100% compromised, and it's so obvious. I mean, he's out here claiming Ghislaine's a victim of Epstein and she deserves a pardon, and that was long before it was like in vogue to have that conversation. Just
how about
crazy.
this one? No, you're spot on, sir. And how about this one on the same regard? I just did a show the other night on how I met the Unabomber, sorta, which was my tales of my interactions
Did you
learning
really?
about the Unabomber. Well, I mean, say one of my dudes is from Lincoln, Montana, and when I met him at the Air Force basic training, we were in the police academy. We both got stationed in Montana together, and then he got married shortly thereafter. I was a groomsman in his wedding, and that was about a year after the trial and 3 years after the arrest or so, right? So 96 to 99. And so I had a lot of questions about the towns, the very small town in the mountains of Montana, about old Ted there. So I started opening my eyes to the subject. There's a lot of that was bullshit. But would you believe the same defense counsel, federal defense counsel, she keeps getting shipped all around these cases from you name it. I mean, the Jared Lee Loeffner, Ted Kaczynski, you name Zacharias Moussaoui. They just moved this federal defender lady, Clark. They just keep Judy Clark. I think they just move her around all these different cases. I'm like, well, how is this not more obvious to folks? It wasn't more obvious to me until I looked at it. But I'm just saying, like, how is this one attorney? She's a federal public defender. She keeps getting shifted to all these different cases. It makes no sense.
No.
She did the bombing guy, Zokhar Sarnoff. She was his attorney.
Wow.
I think she did homeboy in Colorado shoot. They just keep moving this lady around.
Dude, that's interesting to me because I mean, no, honestly, I would have loved to have been a pen pal of Kaczynski's. Apparently, he was very responsive, which is hilarious. But yeah, I mean, it was clear that he was like separated as an infant from his family, and like I think that was a part of what you would do. And again, by the way,
I know that Von Maester, I know that is the prevailing narrative, and that was one of the things I was questioning is. Yeah. What do we know? So we were given this archive of documents saying that he wrote all these letters. We're given a manifesto that they declared he wrote, yet the butcher of Waco was the one forcing the Washington Post to print that.
Janet.
Manifesto.
Good old Janet, huh?
Yeah.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, a lot of questions there. But, and again, like the evidence against him, there really wasn't any. They're like, oh, look, we found this gray hoodie in his cabin along with some chemicals and an early draft of the manifesto. I'm like, oh, well, this is ridiculous. Because then you look at the search warrants and how that worked out and then how they lawfared them and stuff like that.
I think the letters
were tried to fire them attorneys and they wouldn't let them fire them. How do you not let somebody fire your own attorney? Like
the whole case is just ridiculous, honestly. I mean, even the letters themselves, I think, were written by multiple people, right? That was like
I think so, dude. I think so.
And I think it was the perfect example of how multiple spooks would come together and try and fashion a letter in order for a certain agenda to be achieved, But again, it's like the idea of what you could accomplish. And again, it lends back to this sort of point of the Nazi breeding experiments, as far as if you're going to separate an infant child from their mother and at least for like extended periods of time and some sort of abuse, at the very least, it seemed as if as an infant, he was already being like experiencing forms of abuse, right? And that alone is interesting. But then you consider the idea of if you wanted to actually have some sort of constant supply of undocumented children in order to conduct experiments on that, this would clearly be a plausible avenue to pursue as far as that would be concerned. And I believe that something for certain happens in terms of, we had mentioned before, this sort of pedophile, dynastic familial factor that plays into so many of these.
I think that's huge in it, right? And no, I think that's it. No, the generational aspect, right? I mean, I think Julia and Colby will agree that this seems to be an ongoing pattern of behavior as far as folks are born into it. Again, that's what I like to play. Who is your daddy and what does he do? Not the least of which the paternal nature of the Society of Cincinnati. But we see Japonica Fenway. She was born into it.
Hey,
she
can
was
I ask
apparently
you something real quick?
Please.
JJ, you play that game. Have you ever looked at Hugh Hefner and Bill Maher?
I am now. I have actually, and I've thought of it, sir. And now I'm going to highlight that as one of my future ones. I think you're onto something with that. They look a lot alike, don't they?
It's got legs, yeah.
Oh my God! I didn't even.
I'm gonna look more into it because I don't know who they claim his father is, but I'm sure I can find some sort of question.
Yeah, this was like a TikTok thing I saw.
No, they look a lot alike, don't they? They look a lot alike.
And he frequented. I mean, he still might. I don't even know what the status of the mansion is, but he was one of the, every weekender kind of guys there.
Wow.
Absolutely, dude. And he also has his production company was Kid Love Productions.
God, no way.
What?
It's like Forever Young Productions from Pizzagate, man. It's like
that's
right?
exactly what it is, dude. And speaking of Pizzagate, Bill Maher, he right before a month before he started his production company, he made a movie called Pizza Man, where he attacks Donald Trump as this underground organized crime enterprise focused around pizza delivery.
What the how have I not heard of that one?
Well, I don't know, sir. I did an occult and esoteric review on it about 8 or 9 months ago because someone had sent, some folks of the interweb sent it to me because they thought one of the characters in there was named Vance because the Wikipedia, the source of all information on the interweb, said so. And fair enough, it did say that. However, once I watched the film, the guy's name is Vince, but I watched it anyway and did a review on it.
What the hell?
Oh
That is crazy,
God.
man.
Dude,
For
Michael
real.
Milliken's one of the villains in it. It's a very fascinating movie. From 1991, it's a cinematic masterpiece.
Sounds like a straight to Cinemax kind of movie.
Yeah, it's fucking terrible, dude. But he starts Kid Love Productions immediately following that movie, and it's got a lot of heavy connotations with all this.
Like a fucking Hulu original.
If you consider that with you said Kid Love Productions,
dude, Kid Love Productions, dude.
You put that directly in just as far as consider the idea of Forever Young Productions, as I mentioned, right? And what was it? Harry Welch Jr., who was the owner and father of Edgar Madison Welch, right?
The Pizzagate shooter guy, right?
Exactly. Who went into Comet Ping Pong Pizza, shot up the one hard drive they claimed that wasn't exactly his intention, and then he just goes out there and like hangs out casually, has a conversation with the authorities before they apprehend him, and he had just struck someone with his car after returning from Haiti during the fucking like
where his
Laura
father
Silsby
ran
scandal.
a Clinton connected Haiti nonprofit situation, right?
Exactly. And it's crazier than that. Yeah, he's
a
running
hell of a shot, though. I'll tell you that much.
What was it called? It was Harry Welch Jr. The father was running. He was executive director of Protect a Child. That was literally what it was called, and this was the nonprofit that was allegedly meant to prevent abuse and abduction of children, specifically in Haiti. And Laura Silsby sitting there getting caught, obviously procuring children and trafficking them across the Haitian border, and then she gets incarcerated and caught, and Bill Clinton himself has to fly to Haiti and essentially get her released, and then she's brought back to the U.S. and placed on the Amber Alert system.
Yeah, that's the twist right there.
Isn't that the twist? Like, it's so crazy.
Oh yeah.
Well,
the attorney she hired over there was already a convicted diddler.
Yeah, I know. I forgot about that sort of layer to the story.
Bill Mayer's Wikipedia entry is the most egregiously long. It's like a CVS receipt of Wikipedia entries. It's ridiculous, dude. But he plays a guy named Elmo Bun. What is it?
I said he's very important. Ask him.
Oh, obviously very important. Well, he is available for free on YouTube, and folks can check it out there. But we may close this out on Bill Mayer and his Kid Love Productions, who I'm sure he hired an attorney to incorporate these matters, could not successfully do that without these creepy ass fucking attorneys. And then we see that as one of the main figures behind this dark enterprise here in the film, right? With Japonica Fenway's dad. Tough. See right here, he's not upset that his daughter's being tricked out in this environment. He's upset. It's happening to her in a very tacky manner. In some motels at endodontist conventions, right? That's what he's butthurt about. He's butthurt about the music the guy listens to.
Elaborate lined up for.
Yeah, dude. He wants a fancier rape environment for his daughter.
Yeah, he could reflect poorly upon the family, right?
Look, they're Fenways, and the Fenways are going to get raped in a proper environment. Is what his
yeah, they at least better get raped in a proper.
Yeah, he's not against the. I mean, he's the one sending her to the loony bin. She keeps escaping, right? He's not offended by he's offended by the nature in which she's being raped, the environment in which it's being done.
It's just natural for them to sacrifice their children at a certain level. I mean, in terms of like the path to power and prominence, it has to be.
They find it honorable what they do. And I mean, I was going to mention this way earlier, but when we brought up Henry Lee Lucas, fucked his mom, and she dressed him as a girl and told everybody he was a girl until he was like 12.
My God.
It's generational.
It puts the hose. It gets the hose again. Puts the lotion on the skin. I feel like that was very much Henry Lee Lucas's childhood. Would yield a Buffalo Bill situation.
But you just reminded me of the Presidio scandal when Michael Aquino and Lilith, right, his wife, were named by a child victim who took the authorities to the actual residence, right, and claimed that they had been sexually assaulted, but that Michael Aquino and his wife Lilith had actually reversed gender roles during the sadistic sexual abuse on the children. Imagine that. I mean, we're talking with Presidio, 3 to 5 year olds, man. And imagine
that
they
that
made
victim
him
specifically,
watch-
a 3.5-year-old, the stepdaughter of the base chaplain.
Yeah, they made him watch snuff films. They made him watch as they disemboweled cats and stuff, and put him in jars and did all kinds of stuff. But the thing is like, that's why I don't care what people do as adults in their own bedroom, whatever. But when it comes to kids, I'm so like, they tried to do this reverse gender thing and they push it out there and they make it weird. And that's what I don't like. Yeah. And it's always like generational. Like I said, their mom fucked them. Their mom dressed them like a girl. It's just.
You don't think old Crocker Fenway here's dipped into that Japonica jam before? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
a little incest going on here.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah,
if he's going to whore out his daughter, that's what I'm saying. You look at John Phillips and Mackenzie Phillips, right? Look at George Hodel and his daughter, which the Hodels and the Phillips daughters both got raped by their fathers, and then they would team up. So we see all of this weird sex cult stuff from the old era of Hollywood with George Hodel, who's friends with like John Huston, Jack Nicholson's mentor.
Who probably killed the Black Dahlia.
Probably did that, and is involved in a lot of other weird shit.
You remember
the
that
element of what's that, sir?
In the I'm sorry, what's the director that did Scarface? Why am I forgetting the name? Yeah, Brian De Palma. Yeah, he's the director that did the Black Dahlia, right? And I thought it was very. I honestly did appreciate it as much as I think it. There are various aspects of it that obviously could have potentially been, I don't know, just more accurately depicted, I guess, in a way. But still, I think the nature of.
They don't want you to know that Laurel Canyon, George Hodel, incestuous ass, raping his daughter ass. John Phillips fan ass, fucking 100%. Man Ray ass, fucking
Man Ray ass.
They don't
know. We see all the John Huston stuff playing out with John Huston in the film Chinatown, written by Robert Town, Bob Cocaine Evans' sidekick, and his buddies Roman Polanski and Jack Nicholson. Again, we see John Huston playing that incestuous relationship out right there. We see this powerful network of the Albacore Club in there. This would be the same kind of element, and again, a powerful attorney is the one behind it in that element. Like, he's the man to go to fix everything.
Oh, man, old money scions. That's what Hollywood land was, right?
And they all bang their kids, dude. Again, that's we see that in Chinatown. That's the daughter, the Del Rey's daughter. There is in Mulroy. What's his name? Mulroy.
Yeah,
Mulroy.
Oh, okay.
So his daughter there is actually the incestuous relationship there. So his wife is the incestuous relationship of his business partner and friend. You know what I mean? And then they had a kid. So we see the same thing here.
Right. And what were, I mean, they were obviously manipulating and the water supply to all of Los Angeles as well, for reasons, which is like the state impact of the influence being conducted as far as the operation and the precedent setting notions being placed within they're obviously being positioned, I would say, within just the local establishment infrastructure. It's how you kind of pave the way for these dystopian agendas, right? But I do think that totalitarianism takes a diabolical effort with many different sociopaths involved in pursuing this, and it seems like there's also this clear and obvious willingness to pursue, these kind of like they're not necessarily in the I would say, like, pursuing the same exact potential dystopian outcome, but it falls within the framework enough for them to coexist and facilitate the agenda. And I just see Chinatown as another one of the films that perfectly represents that sort of strategy. But
yes, sir, I think you're spot on. And I'll tell you one thing I don't appreciate about Chinatown is that motherfucker's trying to out JJ me. JJ Geddes.
Yeah,
You gotta be kidding me.
Fine, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Telling you, he nailed again. We're seeing the psychopathy of the individuals that run this network and the attorneys that make sure it gets hidden. And that character right there has no problem with his daughter being tricked out. His problems are the decor of the rooms and the fucking Broadway musicals and shit, dude.
Like if
it's a
you're gonna
weird
raise
beef.
my daughter, you better
It's a
be
weird beef.
Yeah, you better be wearing a tie and you better fucking smell like Dracor Noir. Like
right.
Fuck.
Well, as we look at this, oh, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Oh, it just reminded me of the attorney during the Atlanta child murders that essentially was very much affiliated with Andrew Young, who was the mayor, who was he was brought back in turn and honestly put in charge of being the authoritative figure during the Atlanta child murders trial. And it just goes to show that obviously the legal counsel for Wayne Williams was fully compromised from the beginning. And so essentially it was like it took years after the original trial for him to actually get a decent legal representation. And even then, it was kind of very strategically undermined in terms of the credibility of his legal counsel. But still, you just go to see that there is this attorney who was placed on his legal counsel by Andrew Young and these various individual politicians who were prominent within the network being conducted and facilitated in Atlanta, but had connections to the George Bush Sr. administration, which is why Bush Sr. himself came down, had a meeting at the governor's mansion, and intervened prior to Wayne Williams.
Make sure everything was up to snuff, right? Up to snuff.
Right.
And speaking of snuff, the snuff films they were producing, right?
Exactly. And that is why I think that the attorney who was strategically placed in order to facilitate the proper legal counsel for him in terms of the cover-up itself, she had already been the attorney for Michael Thevis, who was the essentially child pornography kingpin in the area that Wayne Williams was he was abducting children, but he was recruiting them through the Gemini project, or the Gemini, I forget what he called it. It was basically his talent recruiting agency. And he would bring those children to, I forget the name of the production studio at the time that Michael Thevis owned in Atlanta. But that's where he would take those children, who would then be filmed in child pornography and various things of that nature. I'm assuming it would go to the extent of legitimate snuff films as well. And just the idea,
dude.
Yeah, just the idea that woman who was that was represent as far as the legal representative of Michael Thevis, the child pornography kingpin that Wayne Williams was taking the children to from the Gemini project, was also on the legal counsel strategically placed there for Wayne Williams. And again, it's like they tried to actually bribe he and his father, Homer Williams, because they were both completely compromised by this network and had burned all of these photographic negatives right after the original arrest, and essentially kind of like lending to the credibility of them deliberately destroying the evidence of the child pornography or the pictures or the films or whatever, the 8mm film strips, let's say,
And they always have a vacuum operation with these damn attorneys, right? I mean, that's who's keeping the lid on this shit.
Yep.
Well, you bring up some excellent points, sir. And back to Manhattan Beach, as we see in this Gordita Beach here in the film, as you said, was the Manhattan Beach setting, and the McMartin preschool used to sit there. Would you believe the first, not Charles Manson's friend Ira Reiner, who would be the district attorney elected shortly after the charges were brought in that case, the one that made it in the circus and made sure nothing ever got brought accountable, etc. But the first district attorney, when charges were brought in the McMartin case, described it in that press conference as revolving around child pornography.
Yes.
So that was a public statement made. It was obviously shit-coded later by Charlie's friends and whatnot, but it is what we see there. And that was at Manhattan Beach, where we see our two characters in the film come back here. For, if I may offer all three of y'all some closing statements here. But this is where, after this clip, this is where our the little scene of these two guys really coming together. Old Jack Queen and Joaquin, and who himself grew up in a sex cult, by the way. I forgot to mention that,
dude.
Oh, dude, I mean, it seems like such a schizo ending, but it's a schizo kind of film, so it's very fitting. I feel like, but
It is so perfect.
I appreciate all y'all joining me here and folks at the interwebs tonight joining us to get a little GCD on the matters of this occult and esoteric film review of the 2014 cinematic masterpiece, Inherent Vice. And if I may start off there with Julia in some closing statements, comments, or any plugs or concerns or any questions. Do you have any questions? I don't know what's going on over there right now.
Well, I really like this movie. I do. I feel like I would need to watch it a few more times to kind of get every perspective, because I've watched it 2.5 times now. And there are things like that Austin mentioned that I never would have put together. Like maybe Doc is like a figment of Bigfoot's imagination and stuff like that. That's kind of trippy, because the whole thing does seem very dreamlike. But Colby made me watch it. Who said? Oh, I don't even know what this movie is.
Right.
It's free on Hulu if you have Hulu.
There you go.
Should watch it right now.
Or you could borrow the DVD from me.
Yeah.
No, you're spot on, Julie, because I watched this easily 10 times before I started really putting a lot of pieces together. There's a lot going on.
Right. And Colby made me watch it. He's made me a more well-rounded individual since we got married. He makes me watch things that I would pass up in a fucking heartbeat on TV or...
And then she'll go watch Ghost Hunters.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, let's be honest. Who doesn't want to watch a couple grown men scream while wearing bedazzled jeans, run around the dark?
Why see it when you can live it? I can go out in my backyard with some meters.
My weekends, get on my bedazzled jeans, run around a couple empty, barns or farmhouses. The neighbors love that.
I love it. But no, I'll let you say your final thoughts. I really like the movie. I think it's about like a psychological, obviously, among other things, it's layered. But the thing that stood out the most to me was that this was kind of like an MK weird disassociative psychological movie. He made me watch Requiem for a Dream, and I almost freaking started my period.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
I went out of my way to not.
They should put a label on that. Warning: may cause ovulation.
Menses. But yeah, no, this is one of those movies that he has me watch that at the end I'm just kind of like, what the fuck was that? Like,
that's the best reaction to a movie.
Yeah.
If you gotta watch it again.
What was the other one that?
Dude, you ain't kidding me. I had the same reaction in
Drive.
Inception, and I walked out of the theater, walked right back into the theater, and I said, I'm gonna watch that again. I don't know what the fuck just happened.
Yeah, any David Lynch movie.
Yeah, we should all get together at some point and cover Mulholland Drive, because I think there's a lot of old Hollywood occultism in that one, and just
absolutely.
Overall mind fuck.
Yeah, I came to visit him and we got high as fucking Georgia pines, and then he was like, we should watch Mulholland Drive, and I was like, okay, because I love Laurel Canyon stuff. Talk about turning your beehole inside out. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Well, at one point,
the only other beehole pucker film I can even think
movie.
of close to that is Under the Silver Lake, if I may, sir. Under the Silver Lake with the dog killers and all the other weird shit going on there.
I haven't seen that one.
You haven't seen Under the Silver Lake? Oh my goodness, dude!
Oh.
You're gonna enjoy that, sir. You're
All
welcome
right.
on that recommendation.
Yeah, at one point during Mulholland Drive, she just looked over at me. She's like, "I thought we were supposed to be having fun."
Yeah,
okay.
Dude, I said that 4.5 minutes into the cafe scene, and I thought this was supposed to be a good movie.
That's hilarious. That's what I kind of like. I knew what I was getting into with The Ninth Gate. I was kind of like watching.
Oh, you mean Polanski and Johnny Depp's fucking show?
100%. I knew what I was getting into with that. With 8mm, I didn't know. And
8mm. I saw someone mention that in the comments earlier. Joaquin,
dark,
with his past, he sure is drawn to a lot of this dark ass shit. I mean, even in Gladiator, he's basically playing a pedophile.
Yeah,
yeah, he's doing like some crazy shit.
Dude, who banged his sister, by the way, with some incest stuff there, right?
Dude, I honestly, he's a fascinating guy. He's a very incredible actor. Honestly, he really has become that. But I will say they put him through a humiliation ritual with that Joker 2 movie, right? Am I wrong there? I mean, that was ridiculous. I didn't even get through it at all. But it just you know, to take the original, which at least had like legitimate value to a certain extent, and then entirely put yeah, I'm not surprised, but it sort of reminds me of the blink twice concept that I mentioned earlier, because the conclusion of that film is so like absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it obviously they go woke as hell and attempt to implement this sort of like feminist like context to like now the victim becomes the abuser and is now worshipped by the general population. It's like so strange, you know, it doesn't even make sense. But I will say that with Inherent Vice, like Inherent Vice in every way, it appeals to me as a just again a connoisseur of just in my mind these sort of layered film projects that I think are far more just like compelling, you know, just to experience as an audience member. But I will say that it fit and gave me that same sort of feeling as 8mm in terms of the conceptual value. And again, it's like what I find so valuable about 8mm, right, is just the idea of snuff films being this urban myth, you know, and being conflated in this way, like the Satanic Panic, very much so in my mind, a manufactured misconception. And you see how these 8mm film strips, undeveloped, this old money scion family, this woman who legitimately she becomes a widow, and she allegedly, you're supposed to believe that she views her husband like at least she sort of bought the myth in terms of her husband, and thought that he was this, he stood for everything, you know, just I would say in terms of the ethical values and what he was pursuing. She definitely, it seemed like she believed the false narrative of his character, you know, and in this way. And then she sees this undeveloped 8mm film strip after he dies, right, in his private safe, and then has a Nicolas Cage come and actually screen this film strip, and then he has this like physical reaction to what he obviously witnesses as a child being completely sexually abused, and then essentially murdered in a snuff film, right? It escalates.
Yeah, dude.
And his physical reaction was like, you know, he recoiled in every way. It was like what you would naturally do if you truly believed what you saw was real. And then he attempted to justify it in his own mind, like, no, that's not, you know, there's no way that could be real. And then he tries to pursue the case in some sort of objective way, and he's introduced to the most well-established pedophile underworld you could ever imagine. You know, and that alone,
and that's not far off from the network we're seeing here in this film, right?
8mm
Exactly.
is what that's called.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think again, just saying, both of you would like Archive 81 because the snuff films.
Well, we're going to be doing 8mm in October as well. Landon, my occasional co-host and guest from the Daily Dissident, there, fellow West Virginian there, Landon. That's one of his favorite movies, I guess. He's been trying to get me to do a review of it. And I actually just recently watched it for the first time. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was fucking disturbed, and I've seen a lot of shit. I've been to war.
Yeah,
for 5
I saw
years,
that in the
you know what I mean?
theater as like a young teenager with my mom and brother.
My God.
It was
That'll
very
get you, bud.
unfortunate.
That'll get you.
That had to have been uncomfortable as hell.
Well, we didn't know what we were watching. It was like, it's the guy who wrote Seven. It's got
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
And then when you walk
Right.
in and you're like, fuck me.
Which I saw 7 in the theater, and that was pretty. That was pretty disturbing.
That's
Yeah,
so
but
weird.
8mm topped 7.
Oh,
You know,
definitely.
I don't
Especially
disagree. I don't
that
disagree.
uncomfortable factor of being with the family while you're watching it.
Well, my mom, after it was over, my mom
Even
was
the
like,
age,
yeah,
dude. That's what I'm
gets
saying,
real.
dude. Like, that's aggressive at that age.
Well,
That
we
is.
didn't know, but my mom, yeah, she talked to my brother and I, and she was like, yeah, that shit really happens.
Knowing your
Rich
mom-
people are fucked up. I don't know what to tell
That's
you.
pretty
That's
amazing,
Yeah, I was
man.
gonna say,
That's
knowing your
pretty
No,
mom and
she's
you.
great. I mean, she's like us. She thinks like we all do. So
Yeah,
She
but I
sounds
was
awesome.
just gonna say that's totally an awesome memory you can have now because that's a cool mom. Just saying.
In hindsight, hell yeah. That is an awesome memory.
That's true. That's true.
And And I will the only point I wanted to make it on 8mm is that what stuck with me more than anything is that Joaquin Phoenix's character, I think, is brilliant in that movie, and he's the connect, right? He's working at a porn shop. He's behind the counter, but he's offering up to any of the clientele, essentially if he thinks that, or he's sort of gauging the character if he views them as obviously not being some sort of snitch, or at the very least he's willing to introduce them into this lifestyle, provide them with, let's just say, illegal pornography of some kind under the counter. And then he goes on to basically he strikes up this relationship with Nicolas Cage's character, who's asking him questions while he's working behind the counter at this porn shop. And so he grows more and more comfortable with Nicolas Cage's character as a private investigator, obviously. And then he introduces him to like this venue, this sort of like seedy location in town where all these sort of like, just individuals with this, sinister sexual proclivities are like accumulating in order to like pursue these disgusting, fetishes. And so they had like all these screening rooms and in this kind of like seedy area and in this weird warehouse type of situation. And there's all these screening rooms involved behind curtains, and you can hear people just like jerking off and listening and watching terrible things. And then he goes up to one of the last rooms in the area, or at least in this property, and essentially Joaquin Phoenix is trying to describe to him like what he's about to see, and basically telling him like this is a point of no return for everyone. If you ever were to experience this, you cannot come back. You will never be the same. And the way that he kind of describes that to him is just like it resonated with me and stuck with me, and I'll forever remember. And it's basically, he says to him, he says, you dance with the devil doesn't change. The devil changes you. And that, like, just me personally.
I saw that. That was a very telling statement, if I may. I often say the same thing throughout my military career, especially if I offered advice to my troops. I would say, you can dance with the devil, but just remember the devil's going to dance back with you, and that's
absolutely,
that's essentially
it's like staring into the abyss, man.
Well, man, it's essentially what goes on when you watch that fucking movie, dude. That's a fucking disturbing movie, dude.
That's it.
And speaking of disturbing things, this motherfucker tried out J.J. Ames, the private detective with no hands, 2 claws, and a tiger that saved Marlon Brando's son. And I think all of these things are the plotline of the film.
The guy with the hook hand?
Yeah, this hook hand guy that saved Marlon Brando's son in Mexico. I don't know if he brought his tiger with him. His name was John J. Ames, J.J. Ames. Trying out J.J. Me, thankfully, well, at least in some regard, rest in peace. But anyhow, I don't know how he did it. He had a hook attachment for a gun. This is like Inspector Gadget, dude, but like the real life.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. What the fuck?
We live in a Muppet world of narratives we don't understand. We're sold propaganda through a bunch of hood rat shit, and guys with fucking hook hands and a gun attachment, and some tigers too, apparently.
That sounds like this story in Adventures in Babysitting, and he had a hook.
Oh, that's a great movie, dude. I love Adventures in Babysitting.
Oh my god!
Honorable mention: Joaquin Phoenix and Walk the Line.
I thought you were going to say honorable mention the kid that Jeffrey Epstein or the Kevin Spacey diddled in Adventures in Babysitting.
Oh.
Yeah. Anthony Rapp guy, he was in that film. That was the summer before that film, I believe, that he got diddled by Kevin Spacey at Jeffrey Epstein's house at that interlocking camp.
I didn't know that was him.
Didn't know
that. Yeah.
My God.
It was right around the same time. That was a good film. I like that film.
Yeah.
She can't even mention an innocent throwaway hook line.
You're right.
Coming back to
I will bring it back to kid diddling Epstein. Epstein's like I'm beginning to understand Epstein's like the Where's Waldo of everything in parapolitics in this world.
That's why he might not even be a real guy.
Whoever employed that motherfucker just sent him around the world just taking photographs of everybody Where's Waldo style. Like, oh, there's Jeffrey. There's Jeffrey.
Oh my
God. I think it might just be a cardboard cutout that they were trolling.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, dude. People just carry around that cardboard cutout, like that's what I'm saying. He's everywhere, dude. What is going on in life?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate your all's time and folks of the interwebs. Thanks for joining us here to get a little GCD. Any last or closing statements before we call it in here?
Goodbye.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Your favorite garbage can gal.
Absolutely. I even got the butthole clip for you there, ma'am.
Yeah.
And not Bill Colby. Thank you, sir. And Austin Way Picard. I always enjoy our conversations as well. Thank you, sir.
Hey, man. Nothing
Nice to meet you, Austin.
Yeah, honestly, dude, nothing but love for all of you guys, and I really appreciate you guys and just the conversation alone. But yeah, I'm eager to continue to collaborate. Honestly, I'd like to try and plan a few things maybe going forward. I know you guys are going to take some time off, but whenever you're I'll hit you up, and whenever you're back and willing and ready to do some more collaborations, like I'm interested, and I would love to have you guys on the show too. Just I'm trying to improve as an interviewer as well, but beyond that, just I enjoy the conversations where I feel like they're constructive and I consistently learn something new, and it's not just people just overall agreeing with each other on every single point. You know what I mean? It's like I much rather prefer to have conversations with people who are critically thinking through these things and have something new to bring to the table and are attempting to in a way where they're acting in good faith, which is definitely something that just frustrates me and just kind of like what I care for more than anything is just essentially knowing that your intentions are pure. And then I'm more than willing to at every level engage with you and hope to grow together like that. That's all I would ever hope to achieve. And so I just have to say, man, it provides me with further inspiration and hope in general as well, because I mean, my God, like PSYOP season for real, like we're surrounded.
PSYOP season.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like this in a way where it just feels like we are, this sort of very deliberate deception has been just implemented and layered around us to such an extent that it's very difficult to wade through this sort of swamp of disinformation. And if I can do that with people that I think have wonderful intentions and their hearts are in the right place, then, man, thank God for that. So I just have to say, I got nothing but love for you guys, and thank you as always. So
yes, sir.
Great to meet you as well, Colby, for sure, man.
Yeah.
You make
some
great points there, sir. And I can encapsulate that by the used car salesman extraordinaire of shit coating things, old Ted Gunderson.
There's thousands of Americans out there. By the way, I've been shot with a laser beam twice.
Laser beam. Watch out, folks. I appreciate all your time and some great thoughts there, Austin, and not Bill Colby. Appreciate your thoughts and time and your thoughts and time as well, man. I look forward to future collaborations and future discussions on these matters.
Definitely.
For sure.
On that note, any last alibis, concerns, questions, comments, or statements?
My barn is burned.
Well, that's it. That's the show here, folks. So the next time you're out on the town, visiting your local watering holes, or perhaps just meandering around, and you hear the unmistakable sounds of metal clanking, and you spot signs of a disturbance, but check your six. Look in that garbage can, 'cause you never can tell. The GCDs may be loose in your town.